action in this qualifying session. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the end of it for them. And well, we'll see what will happen with that one. As I think they're just going to have to start further down the order, as that's not the timing that I wanted on the stream. But 4:30 left in the session now, so very soon, and now we'll get the chance to see who's going to be the early pace setters. 36 Motorsport, 41.105 at the top. Brentwood Karting, 41.166 in second. Purple Racing 5 in third with a 41.175. But the focus now in this session is more towards the bottom of the field. The Orange Tree Racing Cars has just put in a time of 41.563. That's good enough for 13th place. That game, before that happened, before that lap was put in, they've thrown themselves up to 13th place with that one, and it means that the team on the bubble now, DR Autos, who've set their own personal best last time out as well. It was a 41.654 that put them into 16th place, just above MPS Performance. And when I say just above, I mean by exactly 5 thousandths of a second. Tried to do the maths there. 5 thousandths of a second between 16th and 15th, although MPS have just gone in with a personal best. They've just gone into the 41.5s, and they've, as soon as they're in, they're straight back out again of the top 16s. This is why it's very, very good to watch the last few minutes. It's very, very crucial to set a lap in these last few minutes of qualifying, because the standard just keeps getting higher, and the difficulty just keeps going up and up and up, and the margins just keep going down and down and down. March Racing 53 pretty much sets himself safe from 10th place up to third with a 41.113. That's going to be just behind the top two. The GKD Racing currently holding the top, and then there's the 36 Motorsport with a 41.105 that finds themselves at the very top, as well, the Bad Racing team currently on the bubble, 41.529 their lap time. Alessia just behind them with a personal best last time out of a 41.579, so exactly 500ths of a second off of the back of the qualifying session and off of the back of the teams qualifying through. 2 minutes 30 left in this one now, so it looks as though they're going to be able to get probably 4 more laps of racing, if my math serves me correctly, as March Racing up to the top. 53 lap times set by themselves. They go up to the top. Camtech make themselves a little bit more comfortable. So did the Orange Tree Racing 207. Camtech with a 41.269. Orange Tree Racing with a 41.223. And so they should be able to be safe in this session. But at the moment, the time that you need to beat is the 41.529. So they're going to go a couple of tenths quicker than that. But just behind the 41.529, there is the Alessia number 40 with a 41.579, 500ths off of the back, and then another 200ths back to the MPS Performance car of the 95. So it's very, very tight at the bottom of this qualifying session. It's going to be very, very tight towards the end of this qualifying session as well, as March Racing holds the top. Bad Racing gets a good lap time in a 41.323. That puts them into 12th place. That gains them 4 places and takes them just off of the bubble once more. MPS Performance, they can set a 41.543, so they're going to get closer to DR Autos, but they're not going to be close enough. DR Autos improves up to 15th place, instantly displaced by Going Bananas, who put the number 11 into 11th place with a 41.252. The DR Autos lap time is a 41.359. If you beat that, you make your way through to the second qualifying session, it appears, as we've got 2 more laps. Time for 2 more laps at least on the board. At the moment, the teams and the drivers on the bubble, the 95 MPS Performance right out of it at the moment, but have just set a personal best of a 41.543. Alessia with a 41.579. Red Spider Racing just get a personal best with a 41.611. JZ Racing Pro with a personal best all of their own, a 41.623. Then the Slippery Bananas, a 41.8. The JZ Racing Clubman with a 41.8. KTM with a 42.8. And then the Wraith Racing Cup that will not be taking any further part in this qualifying session. So that does mean that there's going to be 7 teams out that we don't know already, but we will find out very shortly. We've got our first 40 lap time on the board with Alessia Prime, a 40.963. 19 seconds to go in this qualifying session. Helicopter Services and Purple Racing 5 go on to their final lap. So do Monkey Monkey. And Monkey Monkey at the moment are the team on the bubble. Personal best from Alveston Autos, a 41.271. That puts them 2,000ths off of the back of Camtech in 14th place. Chasing in for that 13th. Alessia have just crossed the line. MPS Performance are going to be the first team finished and the first team out of this session. 17th for them. A best of a 41.381. DR Autos can do no better than the lap time that they have set, which is a 41.254. And everybody else just looking to either come to the line or come into the lane, I think, at the moment. Wraith Racing, best for them, as they were actually able in the end to get onto the circuit, but weren't able to get a better lap time than a 41.881. Monkey have gone to the line. Serve Bad Racing, serve Red Spider. So Red Spider going to be our third team out of this session. Alessia, JZ Racing Pro, Slippery Bananas have now come to the line. So is JZ Racing Clubman. So it's the 158 who've just come to the line, and it's just the 40 and the 77. And we're waiting on for lap times, but I'm not sure we're going to be getting any competitive lap times from them. So we've got our first confirmed drivers and teams out of the session. It will be MPS Performance just about outside. They were outside by 500ths of a second with Monkey 37 just inside the top 16. Alessia also out the number 40 with a 41.537. Red Spider Racing find themselves in 19th place, and JZ Racing Pro round out the top 20. Slippery Bananas, JZ Racing Clubman, Wraith Racing and KTM will be out as well. Those are your 8 teams that are out of the session. Staying in, Monkey, Bad Racing, Alveston Autos, Camtech, DR Autos, the 207 Orange Tree Racing team, then Going Bananas, Brentwood Karting, Purple Racing 5, Helicopter Services, DAD, 36 Motorsport, Project D, GKD, March Racing, and Alessia Prime, who are on top, and it's mixed emotions, I think, for the Alessia team. And those of you on the YouTube live stream, hello. I've not spoken to you yet today. We've got the opportunity to, well, have a look at a little bit more information than those who are currently at the circuit, and so you're welcome. But yes, trying to do everything as we go today. Of course, this qualifying session, very exciting to start off with. And, well, we'll have our second qualifying session coming up very shortly. Once I've sorted out all of the assets. Hang on. Bear with. We'll be able to get this one. Where's it gone? For now, I'll leave you with this. And just as soon as one ends, another begins. Q2, ladies and gentlemen, is ready to get underway. 8 minutes this time of racing to go, or 8 minutes of setting the best laps you can, more specifically, is ready to go. And at the moment, we're just waiting for the 16 karts to make their way out there and start their next session. And, well, it should be very, very good to watch indeed. If the start of that qualifying session was anything to go by, everybody very close together, and the lap times coming down and down and down. Now, I'm not expecting them to go down any more in this session. What I am expecting is to see the lap times just come a bit closer together. They're going to get a bit closer together, I think, so it should be very, very interesting to watch indeed. And, well, we've got our first ones in. The Project D racing kart back on the pace, 41 straight away, but it's 41.862. So a bit of time to go for them. The March Racing team, the March Racing 53 in that second place, just displaced by the Helicopter Services number 2. And, well, it's the lap times at the back as well, as I say, that we need to be keeping a look on and a look at. It's the top 8 who'll make it through to the next session. And so that'll be a very, very interesting one to watch. There'll be one Clubman kart in this session, and it's the Bad Racing number 39. So that'll be very interesting to watch indeed. At the moment, we've got 5 of the pros, and then the rest is comprised of super pros, as we've got 15 karts out there setting times on the circuit, and so they'll be happy with the way that their sessions have gone so far, I think, because of course it is not necessarily all about having your out and out pace in the first session, but it's just about being able to get a lap time on the board. And and then seeing where you're able to go from there. And well, at the moment it's looking very promising indeed for the March Racing 53, for the 86 of the Project D, for the GKD Racing kart that just went up to the top for about a fraction of a second, then they got knocked off of it. So there's plenty to be excited about for all of those teams at the moment, and it's plenty to be nervous about as well for a few of the teams further back in the order. But of course, that could be misrepresentative. They might not have pushed all flat out in that first qualifying session. So it's all to play for. It's very much all to play for. And a little bit of action on our hands, which would be very, very good indeed to watch. We have managed to get the live stream up and running. It's running at about 5 frames per second, which is not what I want. But yeah, if you'd like to check that out, if you'd like to give us a subscribe, that would be very much appreciated. 5 minutes left in this session already, and we've got our first 40 and our second 40 lap time, both set by the March Racing 53. Alessia Prime in that second place, just outside, very close to the Purple Racing 5. Looking further back, and it's the Bad Racing cars at the back with a 41.482, just behind the Orange Tree Racing 207, who took a while to get going. Beautiful, we should be back on the live stream. Looks like we might be. I cannot quite tell is the answer to that. But while we try and get that sorted out, it is the third qualifying session ready to get underway, and we're going to have our 8 drivers in this final session ready to go, and 4 of them very close together on the circuit. It's the Project D kart that came out straight away that is going to be right at the peak of this little group of 4, potentially 5 if the DAD Racing kart can get any closer. But at the moment, that is the way that it stands. The 86 leading that group, and they're going to hope that they're in decent condition as well. But the times at the top at the moment are 41.063 from Alessia Prime, 7 thousandths of a second ahead of DAD Racing in second place. It's incredibly close at the top of the field. GKD Racing have just gone up to the top, and Project D have thrown themselves into contention as well. The top 4, 41.0s or 40.9s. So incredibly close between everybody out there. 7 karts at the moment. And at the moment, it's the Purple Racing 5 without a representative lap time. Everybody else pretty close together. 36 Motorsport 41.4. And everybody else 41.1s or above at the moment. So very, very tight indeed at the very top of this qualifying session. We're going to have a very, very interesting end to this session, and a great start to our day. GKD Racing faster than Project D by 5 thousandths of a second. Are they going to improve as they come to the line? No, but the Purple Racing 5 will get a lap on the board of 41.055, 8 thousandths of a second ahead of Alessia Prime. It's incredibly tight, as Alessia Prime, in fact, are matched with DAD Racing number 7 for the fastest lap time. That's incredibly tight, and I think it's just only going to get tighter as we come to the end of our session, and we'll be seeing who will be taking that pole position away for this race. We've had our F1 style qualifying session. We're going to have the 7 karts that are out there at the moment fighting for those top few positions, and at the moment GKD Racing, the class of the field. March Racing up to 3rd place. Instantly displaced by DAD, Purple Racing 5 and Alessia Prime, all of them going to the 41.0s. So March Racing 41.054 looked like a good lap until the DAD put in a .017, until Purple Racing 5 put in a 41.006, until Alessia Prime went only 4 thousandths faster than that. So incredibly tight, 5 thousandths between the top 2 and 7 hundredths of a second between the top 6. And with only 2 laps to go for the majority of the karts, this is going to come down to an absolute nail-biter. Is anybody able to improve on the penultimate, or potentially the 3rd to last lap of this session? 36 Motorsport puts themselves into contention. DAD Racing goes fastest with a 40.922. Project D gets a 40.938. And GKD Racing also up there, 40.909. 3 karts now, just breaking the barriers with 40.9s and 34 seconds left in the session. I think they're going to be able to squeeze one more in, but we will see where they all stack up at the end of this session, at the end of these laps. Anybody into the box, into the pit lane this lap? It doesn't look like they're going to. So it's last chance saloon for the majority of these karts that will head across the line and will get their lap times on the board. March Racing, a 41.061. 36 Motorsport into the point zeros as well. Project D gets a 40.859. And Purple Racing 5 also with a 40.972. So it's getting even tighter, it's getting even quicker as the challenge for pole position continues on. Who will snatch it at the end of this session? Well, it looks as though Project D is in the driving seat right now, and they will come to the line for their very final lap times to be set on the board. Who will be on top? First one to the line is the March Racing number 53. They are going to be getting a 41.1, 41.2 for 36 Motorsport. In fact, nobody improved on their final laps apart from the Purple Racing 5 that didn't improve on positions, nor did the Alessia Prime 42. But it will be Project D with an even faster lap time in the final lap of the session to take pole position away. 40.808. Very, very good lap time indeed. And they can be thoroughly impressed with the job that they've done there to take themselves to the top of the field. A very good lap indeed. And, well, Project D throwing themselves massively into contention for this race. The front of the field is the perfect place to start, and that is exactly where they find themselves. So very, very good lap time indeed. They've managed to beat out the other 23 karts to this first session, and they've done so with a decent amount of competition as well. If you have a look at the qualifying sessions that we had, the first qualifying session, they found themselves down in 4th place. So they weren't necessarily the pace setters at the start. It was Alessia Prime who ended up in 5th in this qualifying session, but then they managed to find their stride and get into it. The second qualifying session they had, they went onto the front row of the grid. They got a 40.891. They managed to beat that not just once, but twice in the final session that they had, a 40.859 and a 40.808 that sees them at the very top of the field, and they take pole position. GKD Racing find themselves in 2nd place. They'll be alongside as they head towards the first corner, of course. It will be a rolling start, and then we'll have DAD in 3rd alongside the Purple Racing 5. Alessia Prime in 5th, and March Racing in 6th. The 36 Motorsport kart will find themselves in 7th place. 8th place will head the way of, if I can just make the reference of the Going Bananas 11, and it will be Alveston Autos who find themselves in 9th. 10th, Helicopter Services. 11th, Brentwood Karting. Monkey find themselves in 12th, and the DR Autos team in 13th. Orange Tree Racing in 14th, BAAD Racing in 15th, and then Camtech rounding out those who made it through to Q2 in 16th place. Then the final qualifying session, the first even, but the final part of the results. MPS Performance, Alessia, number 40, Red Spider Racing, JZ Racing Pro, Slippery Bananas, JZ Racing Clubman, Wraith Racing, and KTM will round out your 24 kart field for today's action. But that's exactly what you hope for from a qualifying session and the race. soon to get underway. So it'll be a very, very good prospect indeed with all of these karts very tightly matched together. And a lot of them very consistent as well. For example, DAD, last lap that they set, 40.242, that was only, or 40.942 even, that was only 0.02 of a second slower than their personal best. So there is a lot of consistency from these karts, and we hope at least they're going to be able to replicate it in the race session coming up very shortly. Now, stream. We are on, and everything should be absolutely fine for the rest of the race. Apologies for any of the issues that we had, of course. Wasn't an ideal way to start, but we are now all set and sorted. And well, stick around because we're going to have our race session underway very shortly. 4 hours around the Rye House Kart Raceway. It should be a good one for round number 2 of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship. sound of engines is a great one. And they're all being fired up now for round 2 of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship. Just giving you a little taster of what I can see right now. I will change it back in a minute, but that's where the engines are coming from. So, of course, the view that you can get is of the majority of the racing action that I can give you, which I think will happen because the main overtaking opportunity is going to be through turn number 4. So turn number 4 will be the corner. It's sort of, you can see turn 4 and turn 5. So that's what I'm going to give you. Let's hope that all of the racing happens there. Please drop us a follow if you're not already subscribed to the Rye House YouTube channel, because hopefully we're going to be able to get to you live streams from every single one of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship rounds and the Rye House Kart Club, as well as any other events that we've got going on. Without further ado though, this is round 2 of your Rye House Pro Kart Championship. They are now setting off from the grid and just trying to sort themselves out into a decent position at the moment to get themselves underway for this race session. Of course, round number 2 of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship is set to be a very, very good one indeed, and they're all just warming up their tyres now. And it's set to be a very, very good race indeed. Of course, they'll come down towards the first corner and will have as much racing as you can fit into a day, a 4-hour window. And they'll roll up to the line now. Project D, the 86, on the front row of the grid alongside GKD Racing, the pole sitter in the club mode, in the Pro class, even as the 36 Motorsport, and then the clubman is the BAAD Racing number 39. Without further ado then, Rye House waits for the action to get underway. It's the 86 that'll lead into the first corner, ahead of the GKD Racing cars alongside, and as they'll head through the first couple of corners, it will be the 86 that hold on to the position. Side by side, 4 fourth places they head out, and it's going to be a poor exit out of turn number 3 for the 36 Motorsport car that's going to drop down the order, not just 1, but 3 positions, as they had a good start, but now find themselves on the inside line, on the number 1, on the GKD Racing car that did not have the greatest of starts either, and they're going to head to the end of the first lap, still side by side, still fighting it out, still duking it out for all of these positions. But one thing is very clear, the Project D kart at the front remains at the front, and they're going to be chased in by the kart in behind, the number 70 AD Racing kart into the first corner, looking for the outside line, going to try to take the position off of the kart at the front at the moment, but can't quite do so. Is there going to be an overtaking opportunity into turn number 4? They're going to have a look once again into the inside line. Don't quite make it stick. The 42 trying to find a way around the outside as well. Might switch to the inside for the next corner. And again, they just remain in the fight, but they don't remain alongside. The Purple Racing 5 in the meantime trying to fight with them as well, as further down the order it is going to be a couple of positions lost at the start for the March Racing 53, a couple of positions lost, quite a few positions in fact, for the number 3 Helicopter Services car. So not a good start from them, down 6 places on the opening lap. And they'll all come to the end of the next lap, the fastest lap of the race, going to the Alveston Autos number 10 straight away. And something's happened to the Alessia number 40. A poor start from them sees them almost lapped by the end of the second lap of this race. At the top 2 might be duking it out once again. The number 7 trying to find a way alongside, but can't quite do so. Slightly further back, the 95 tries to pressure on the back of the 39 of the BAAD Racing car, but can't quite find the overspeed to do so. Remains in behind for the time being, as we're going to head on to what will be our third lap of 2 hours of racing. Is that a good exit out of the final corner from the number 7? We'll see as they'll head down towards the first corner. I don't think it'll be quite enough to pull alongside or pull ahead. We shall wait with bated breath, as in fact it will be a good enough exit. The lead of the race has swapped around. The number 7's through, and the Purple Racing 5 looks to the inside of the Alessia Prime kart into turn number 4. Can't quite make the move stick, and actually the 42 has to go wide. So the DAD Racing kart does take the position, but there might be a bit of a contact warning between the two. Don't think actually there was any contact. But they got very, very close together indeed, and it can certainly be perceived that there was a squeeze off the circuit from one to the other. But of course, they will keep the racing going onto lap number 4 with our new leader for the first time. The DAD Racing Kart expected to take the fastest lap. Is going to come across the line. Is going to get a personal best, but not in fact the fastest lap of the race. That still is held by the Alveston Autos cars. We head onto lap number 4 now, and they will keep fighting out the top 4, starting to build a gap between themselves and 5th place at the moment. And they are just trying to do so with the 7, with the 86, with the 3, and with the 5 at the moment. Although I think, in fact, the 3 has been lapped. The helicopter services car not able to get themselves underway for this one. And not doing particularly well. But of course, 4 hours is a very, very long time, so they can get their kart suited and booted and going once again. And hopefully they'll have slightly better fortunes later on, as well, the DAD Racing Kart using all of the circuit to remain in ahead of the Project D kart that sets the fastest lap of the race. They're both trying to stretch their legs at the front of the field. A 41.3 last time out from the DAD Racing Kart, beaten by 41.2 from the Project D kart behind, which is now the fastest lap of the race. Those two coming up on lap traffic, those two coming up on the number 40, the Alessia kart, which will be the 3rd kart that they have lapped in this race after the Wraith Racing Kart and the Helicopter Services number 3. So they're going to hope to make their way through nice and cleanly. That's what the DAD Racing Kart will be hoping for, at least. The Project D kart will be hoping that they fluff their lines at the front, and then the 86 can open up another overtaking opportunity. That's what's so great about these such long races where they can lap. That sort of thing can really come in and affect the outcome of this race. But yeah, they're closing, and now in fact they are faster per lap by about 5-6 tenths of a second as the DAD Racing Kart at the top. Fastest lap again on the last lap as the number 11 goes for a move. That looks like it's going to be on the 36 of the 36 Motorsport team, of course, and will be the outside line. Will this be the position sealed nice and easily? Yes, it will. A very, very well executed move. Made it look easier than it indeed is. Out of the final corner, the 42 of Alessia Prime looking to pressure on the back of the Purple Racing that just set the fastest lap of the race, so looking to lap as well and catch up and try and pick up a bit of that momentum as well that they've got. But a 41.119 shows that the Purple Racing 5 isn't quite out of the fight for the top few at the moment, and the 3 getting through on the 42. Just trying to command hold of position at the moment, because of course when you get lapped you do lose time, and if you feel as though you are faster, there is no need for you to feel as though you can lose any time. Of course, you don't have to let them through, but it is suggested that is what you do, and well, that's what they'll be hoping they'll do pretty quickly. That's what the leaders will be hoping. The number 3 will do very quickly, but of course the Helicopter Services, in fact, fastest lap for themselves, personal best, is the 4th fastest lap in this entire field. The top 3, of course, hold them, and they're starting to break away with a gap. But the Helicopter Services car has managed to get up to speed. Of course, they are being lapped, but they are holding pace, and in fact, their pace might be just that little bit quicker. Of course, last lap time wasn't representative because they were being overtaken, so they had to take some odd lines in and out of corners, but on the whole, they held position, they held station, and at the moment, they hold what will be 23rd. Later on in the race, if they keep up this pace, they'll be able to push themselves further up, and that's why they won't let themselves get lapped particularly easily, because that will lose them a decent amount of time. We've had a contact warning for the Alveston Autos number 10, and that will be our first warning of the day. So that's very unfortunate for them to find straight away. The 53 is going to be trying to find a way past the 3, cannot quite do so. Will remain in behind for the time being. The 1 chasing the 10 just ahead of them as well. They've just gotten through on the Helicopter Services kart and now look to fight with each other as they head into turn 5. Now down towards turn 6, 7 and 8. Throwing the kart in fact, and maybe taking too much curbing was the number 1 chasing in behind the number 10. So unsettled the kart just that little bit too much. And then they weren't able to pressure out of the corner or down the straight, in fact, because it can have a knock-on effect later on in your race. And later on in terms of, yes, you might have a poor exit, but you can have a search for another opportunity to make your way through as that's just the way that it stays at the moment. The DAD Racing Kart at the top with a 41.2 consistent lap times set by them. The Project D Racing Kart even more consistent. Their personal best is 41.250 at the moment. They've got a 41.251 on the previous lap time, as the number 3 getting lapped by the 10. The Everson Autos Kart trying to find an opportunity on the way through, but the number 3 not giving up too many positions very easily at the moment, or in fact it's the 53 behind the 10's already made their way through. 50 going for a move on 36 into the first corner. That will be the Camtech Kart on the 36 Motorsport one, and we'll be looking for the move, but looking at the top 2, or the top 3 in fact. Beautiful switchback defence from the Project D, number 86. Tried to defend the position by braking early, sweeping through and holding position. That's exactly what they've done, and they hold second place at the moment. The Purple Racing Kart saw an opportunity, went and backed out for it. Same thing further down the order with that fight that I was just looking at, the 36 and the 50, the 36 Motorsport Kart and the Camtech Kart for that for the position further down in the top 10. That will be for 9th and for 10th. And well, at the moment the 53 has made that move, has held on to that position, and in fact is looking for a move back on the number 10, the 53, so seeking a chance, has taken the chance, and now has the number 1 right ahead of them, the GKD Racing Kart for company. But it's a very good start for those at the front of the Pro field, and now maybe trying to make an imprint on the Super Pro field. Of course, the top 5 all Super Pros, then it's the 3 Pro class karters in behind. Then the Camtech in 9th, the Monkey 37 in 14th, and the Helicopter Services number 3 as we almost went 3 wide out of the final corner. The 86, the 42 and the 5, so that will be for second place in this race. Very exciting action to start off this one, and it's the 86 that holds on to the lead of this little group. The 42 try to find a space, and the Purple Racing 5 to the inside, but just backs out of it in the end. This is going to lose these more time. This opens up the door for the 53 who's just made their way through on the 1 to catch up, and that group of 3 and 4 if you can, the Helicopter Services car that's been lapped to start off a very exciting race indeed. Maybe an 8-car fight for that second place within the first half an hour or so of action on the circuit, and that could be very, very intriguing indeed. Of course, they went 3 wides, they lost time. Last lap, they were 1.4 seconds ahead. This lap, it's going to be a gap of 9/10 of a second. They are so much closer, and it will be the leader of the Pro class, the number 53, who's going to have the first imprint on them potentially, but the 42 to the inside. Alessia Prime trying to make the move. But again, strong defensive manoeuvre from the Project D, racing, braking early, making their way through. The 5 trying to see their way through as well, and they've gone for the switchback all of their own, but this time it's an attacking one and a defending one, but they haven't been able to make their way through, just backing out and just deciding they don't want to lose any more time to anybody else. 2.5 the gap between themselves and the top of the field. The DAD Racing Kart 3/10 ahead at the start of the last lap. This lap, it's going to be a gap of 2.6, so 2.6 seconds the difference between them, and last lap I meant it was 3/10 of a difference between the lap times. It was about 2.5, it's now 2.7. The difference between them is right. The number 1 going for a send to the inside line. The 10 getting through as well as the 40 gets squeezed off. That's the Alessia car currently being lapped, and so is they're going to drop down in that group. They are just going to let that go, I think, and they're just going to try and rebuild their races. The Monkey and Orange Tree Racing Karts try to fight as well. Probably the 2 most distinct liveries on the field are going hammer and tongs. It's the Monkey in the Super Pros and the Orange Tree Racing in the Pro class, and that will be the 37 and the 207 fighting for. They'll continue to lead the way. The 6 though, still seeking an opportunity, still trying to find any way through, are happening. If any hold-ups happen as well, and I think that's what has benefited the group 5th down to 8th, because now they can get themselves locked in on it as well, or 5th down to 7th even, as they can get themselves back in the fight for the podium position. The 86 taking wider lines, trying alternative things to defend against the 42, goes to the inside anyway, but again it's earlier on the brakes and earlier on the throttle from the 86, that holds station. The 5, where are they going to go? Are they going to find a chance past the 42 who lost that momentum? No, they're not. 86, 3rd time now, they've made a very strong defensive manoeuvre into turn number 4, and they managed to hold on to the position. So very, very good defensive driving indeed. And fastest lap, in fact, for the 42 last time out, a 41.053. Beating out just about the Purple Racing 5 fastest lap. So, not only now are they fighting They are gaining time on those ahead, gaining time on those behind, trying to build the gap, and it's a very, very good fight indeed between them. That will continue on. The Alessia Prime car this time trying to go to the outside, switching it back to the inside, doing as well, and losing that track position. Not going to be very happy with the Alveston Autos car that makes their way through. A lot of time loss on that lap, potentially. Another contact warning. We've had another one a little bit earlier on. This was for the 207 Orange Tree Racing kart. So they will be a little bit disappointed with that one, to get one so early on in the race. They're going to try and avoid anything of sort later on into this one, but a very, very close group indeed. Second all the way down to 7th place. Alessia Prime at the back of that group with the fastest lap of all of them. They were just ahead of the Purple Racing 5 a couple of laps ago, but they lost 4 positions, so you can see why there was visible frustration for the 42, who complained down the straight. That's the first real opportunity they're going to get to complain at all, and that is the only real time that they will be giving to complaining, because they just have to keep very tight in this fight. It's an incredibly close fight, it's an incredibly tense fight. The leader of that, the Purple Racing 5, last time 41.248. Second place in that, the March Racing 53, 41.247. So there is 1,000th of a difference between the top two, and that's ignoring Alveston Autos, who set a personal best. That's ignoring Alessia Prime, who went quicker than the top two as well. So it's very, very tight in the fight. And GKD Racing, yes, they're slower than the top two, all the two behind, but they are faster than the top two. They're trying to take advantage. The 5 with momentum into the first corner. The Purple Racing 5 with the fastest lap of the race. March Racing 5,000 off the back as well, or 500s even off the back with that lap time. And the Purple Racing car goes even more to the inside. The 86 tried to defend it, but the 5 went for it anyway. And in the end, it was the 86 that was able to defend it. And the Purple Racing kart is really trying to push the limits of the 86's defensive manoeuvres at the moment. And at the moment it's working. 37 trying to fight with the 207 as well. That's been a fight that's been going on for quite a while now, and it is still not at its climax. The 207 holding station, holding firm, not doing much to defend, but just doing a lot in terms of getting those times and getting the exits out of corners they desire to remain in position up ahead as well, the GKD Racing car continues to lead this little group. The 53 and the 1 side by side. The GKD Racing car is to the inside line. The 42 goes through as well on the 10. That's 2 good moves brought out by 2 in this fight, and now changes the complexion of the fight slightly, because you've got new competitors who are gaining positions. Those who are falling back will be thrown into the fight a little bit more. They'll have lost that momentum slightly because they've lost that position. They're not following the same cart behind. They'll just keep trying to go at it again and again and again. But it's the GKD Racing through on the March Racing. It's the Alessia Prime through on the Alveston Auto. Again, all similar lap times, all locked in this fight. And the 3 on the back of them. Fair play to keep it going and keep that momentum up. Now, they need to not lose that position. They've kept those lap times so incredibly consistent sitting behind that it's only a matter of time before they start to reap the rewards. Their best time is a 41.290. Last time they set to 41.330. So their lap times have been incredibly consistent, and that is exactly what they would have been hoping for. Consistency is key, and it's going to benefit them towards the end of this one, as they now know that they can sort of try and piggyback off the back of those lapping through, and can just make their way through as well. Even though they're a lap down, they can come through, and they will be legitimate overtakes rather than the lapping as the 42 to the inside of the 53 into turn number 4. It might be a send switch back from the March Racing car to try and remain ahead, but the 42 has the Prime inside line. And the Alessia Prime car remains in the lead of these two, but the 53 still goes for the move potentially on the inside line, backs out, does not decide to have a go for it as the Project D kart in the lead of this group. Very much under pressure now. And the Purple Racing 5 all over the back of him. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another fastest lap last time out from one of these, but no. The GKD Racing closest to it with a 41.1. 41.3 for Purple Racing, 41.3 for Project D. So they're pretty much bang on with each other as the 5 goes for the send. The 1 tries to follow through as well, and the GKD Racing car could lose 2 positions in the space of 1 corner. Indeed they have, and it would have lost them more time, I think, to back out of it. So that was a good decision. Just to back out of it, just to go again. They would have lost the same amount of positions, probably lost more time. So in the end, smart decision from the GKD Racing kart, just to take that hit, and just to lose those 2 positions in the 42 might be making it a little bit more of a little bit more misery for the 86, but not at the moment. Not at the moment. They have to set it up, and has he set himself up well enough into turn number 4? The 86 has to remain aware. Those 2 are not the only 2 that were trying to pressure him. The 42 is also there. The 53 is also there. Yes, the 10 has fallen off just that little bit, and by a little bit, I mean 0.6 of a second. So that shows how close that fight has been early on. But it's just so incredibly close between that group, and it has been for the first 20 minutes. This is probably the most exciting 20-minute period I've had of an endurance race this year, and it looks only set to continue as we head on to what will be the 27th lap of racing, and it's a personal best from the Purple Racing 5, it's a personal best from the Project D Racing kart. So they are pushing themselves on. The Project D Racing kart still has a little bit of a gap. By a little bit of a gap, I mean 0.3 of a second. So basically nothing at all, but it looks big in comparison to what they've had throughout the course of this race. The Going Bananas kart just ahead of the Brentwood kart, and was trying to defend their position, is still trying to defend the position. The 36 in the background as well, looking potentially for the move. The Camtech 50 looking as well to try and defend from these 3 cars behind. So they are all locked in battle up there as well. The first 20 minutes will be the most exciting 20 minutes of this race, I think. Just because of how much action we've had. But potentially it could continue on. Of course, they can maintain that momentum for an incredibly long time. And that is what we like to see, is the 11 going very wide out of turn number 2 and into turn number 3 to try and make the move on the Brentwood karting car, or in fact lose the position on the Brentwood karting car. Little bit of a couple of gestures there from the 36 Motorsport kart, trying to communicate something, and in the end they get back ahead of the 11. So they've gained 1 position. The Brentwood kart looks like they might be breaking free as well. So it's all sunny and shiny for the 32, not so much for the 2 cars that find themselves in behind as, well, that fight heats up. All of the fights heats up. 10 through on the 77 trying to go through and lap. This is where the lapping comes into effect. The GKD Racing kart to the outside line of the 42, trying to make his way through. He's done so, and he'll try to hold on to that 3rd place for dear life at the moment. And, well, it might be the opportunity that the Project D Racing kart has been waiting for to make his way back through and make his way back into the fight for that 2nd place, which, of course, is currently held now by the Purple Racing 5, who's got a decent chunk of a gap. He and the GKD Racing kart have got a decent chunk of a gap to those in behind. And so they need to not fight too much, I think, this group. They need to have a look at the bigger picture and see if they can hold on ahead. The 86 through, that's a late lunge from the 53 as well. The March Racing kart just piles on the misery and tries to take the most advantage as they can, and tries to take the position as well. It was a late lunge, a very late lunge, into turn number 5. But now hope that there's going to be no form of warning. It looked like a clean move, of course. There's only one angle I can see it from, and the marshals can see it from so many different angles, so they're going to have so many different opinions as, well, the 5 and the 1 have broken free though on the last lap. It was 1.8 seconds between those 2 drivers, and they're going to hope to hold on to that, the 42 and the 10, maybe making moves, the 50 and the 32, also maybe doing the same thing. It's all going to be up in the air right now. Should get a better view of some overtakes, rather than just cars going in a straight line. Yeah. But yeah, on to now lap number 32, and hopefully they're going to settle down soon for the purposes of my voice box. If not, I'm not complaining either, because it has been very, very intense indeed at the very start of this race, and it only looks set to continue, you would imagine, throughout the course of it. But a very good start indeed from the racing action perspective, at the absolute very least. Because of course, yes, the DAD Racing kart has broken off down the field. Yes, now the Purple Racing 5 and the GKD Racing number 1 have broken away from that little group of drivers that they were in for so very long. But that group is still active. That group is still 5 cars strong. Or 4 cars, in fact, and the helicopter services car. So Not too much to complain about, really. The 50 and the 32 have had a quiet battle going on for a while now. Ever since they've been able to break free from the 36 Motorsport car that was sitting in behind them now, finds the 77 KTM splitting the two groups, or I say the two groups of karts, it's the two karts ahead and the one kart behind. Ever since that happened, they've just been able to maximise their performances. And they've been able to maximise the pace that they had the potential to put in. And that's exactly what they've been making the most of. And, well, whilst they may come to blows in the next couple of laps, they may come to a fight, as speaking of fights, the March Racing car to the inside, the 10 trying to take advantage as well. Alpecin Autos and March Racing both through on the Project D Racing kart into what will be 4th place, and it might be side by side on the exit between the Alpecin Autos and the March Racing kart as well, but in the end, it's just going to be them filtering out through positions. It's incredibly tight if you were to go side by side through turn number 6. They don't take the gamble, they don't take the risk, and it is going to be absolutely fair enough that they don't take that risk in any way, shape or form. Because you wouldn't imagine that they would want to, with what is at stake and with what they could be losing, because of course they could be losing those positions once again, and that's not what they want to do. So they're just going to try and remain ahead of the 86, who, in fairness, has put up probably the strongest defence he could have done, but those two just able to muscle their ways through, and now sitting in and back where they were hoping to be, which is at the moment at the lead of that pack, with potential to expand it and potential to make their way forward. That's what they'll be hoping for at the very least. But of course, that's not necessarily a universal opinion, because those ahead, those fighting for the podium, would quite like to be unbothered, really. They'd quite like to have a quiet little fight for those podium positions, but not if the 53 and the 10 come knocking on their door. But the gap between them might be potentially a little bit too much. 2.8 the gap between the top 3 and everybody else, and so it might be just a little bit too insurmountable for them as we get our second Pro Kart Championship race of the year. We'll tick over to about half an hour done, so it's absolutely flying by. The first half an hour has absolutely flown by in this race session, and that means we've still got 3 hours and 30 to go. So we will be about an eighth of the way through this race as we see it. As if I've done my maths correctly, which I think I have. I've done my maths correctly, okay. I just wanted to check. But that is a very good start. Indeed, out of the racing, and it's absolutely flown by. The DAD Racing kart at the very top of the field now starting to stretch their legs. A 41.101 last time out. The Purple Racing 5. 4.2 seconds behind now. Yes, they gained a little bit on that last lap, but they gained by 0.03 of a second, so it's not going to be a surmountable gap, at least at this point in time. The GKD Racing kart finds himself in third place, losing 1 place off the start as the top 2 have gained 2. So I wouldn't say it's altogether a bad start from themselves, as they can be right in the thick of the fight for where they qualified. So there can't be too many complaints about that. 4th place for March Racing at the moment, gaining 2 positions. Everybody at the top pretty much gaining some positions straight away, and that's exactly what they would have been hoping for, apart from Alessia Prime. Now, have they come in for their first pit stop? It appears as though they have. Didn't catch an eye of them in the lane, but fair play for them to get that pit stop done in about 30 seconds. Fair play indeed. It's an undercut, and it's an undercut that puts them just in no man's land, really, for the 42 at the moment. They do have on-circuit company, but naturally you're going to have company on circuit. There's 24 karts around 9 corners, 950 metres of track. So you're naturally going to have company. But they don't have any company in and around them in terms of positioning. It's just karts who've gone through and are a lap ahead. So at the moment, the 42, I'd imagine, very happy with the position they find themselves in. And in fact, they do find themselves in a little bit of no man's land at the moment, just ahead of the 5 and behind the 7 in terms of being on track. But yeah, for the 42, not too bad of a start, and they'll be hoping that undercut that they've made will be paying off. Because of course, if you go for a strategy that's against the grain, it is a gamble. And in fact, last time I was here, at the very end of the Pro Kart Championship season last year, it was a massively gambled strategy that paid off. 2 teams left their pit stops right to the very end of the race, and it was basically a case of who dares wins, who goes later wins. Now, we'd lost track of the pit stops by this point. It was myself and John Ratcliffe in the box who, well, best wishes to John at the moment because he is fighting an illness. But it was very, very good for ourselves just to keep track of everything, and it was good to see that there was 2 of us in the box so that one of us could go down and ask, you know, how many pit stops have you got left? Just to recount, just to keep track of it. Now, John was the one who was sent down there. I say that like I sent him down there personally. He sent himself down there, and he went and had a look, and he had a chat. And as it turned out, there was the top 2 in the race that were in the lead by however long, about 40 seconds. Neither of them had come into the pits. They didn't want us to let anybody over the commentary know. They didn't want us to let anybody at the circuit know. So we just had to keep hold of that information until the very end of the race. We kept hold of it, and magically, they both came into the pit lane, and we, of course, acted surprised, acted as if we didn't know what was happening. We were lying, because we knew exactly what was going to happen at the end. But it was the one who took the gamble into the pit lane late, and it was very interesting to see, because it was for the overall lead as well, and they saw that they had about a minute to go until the checkered flag. So they had the ability to come in, to do everything they need to in a pit stop, the absolute bare minimum, and then coast to the line at the end. And it was one of the most unbelievable finishes that I've seen in a kart race for some time. And the other team, which I think pitted 2 laps before that, they would have been aggrieved a little bit, I think, because they'd basically been outsmarted on their own strategy. But that's the sort of fine margins you can get, and that's the sort of benefits you can get from boxing early. Alessia Prime have done it. We'll see how that pays off, as they are 7.3 at the moment, off the back of the Slippery Bananas ahead. 7.3, in fact, ahead of Helicopter Services behind as well. And, well, as I say, hard to keep track of the pit stops. I will do my darndest to make sure that the pit stops are kept abreast. I cannot guarantee anything. Sorry, stream, the microphone fell over. In my eagerness to make a point, I was using the mouse and knocked over the microphone. Apologies. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one to keep an eye out on, if indeed I can keep my eye out on, which I will do my best to do. Just having a look at who's already boxed. I believe the Helicopter Services number 3, the Wraith Racing number 21, and the Alessia Prime number 42 have all made their pit stops so far. With many still to come, because we've just crossed over our first half an hour. And yeah, each strategy will be played out. They don't really want to box again, because that's basically an extra lap and some change. And they don't want to come in, really, you would imagine. So they're going to try and keep it out of the box as much as they possibly can as the Orange Tree Racing Kart goes for the fight with the 95. Did pull alongside into turn number 4, but just backed out of it. It's been a very, very dramatic race so far for both of them. The Orange Tree Racing Kart fighting with the 36, or fighting for a very long time, was fighting with the 36, but has been fighting for a very long time. The MPS Performance Kart is the biggest gainer, the joint biggest gainer off this, or actually second place, just spotted Camtech, who gained 8 off of this race start, because they've gained 6 positions. Now, the only other team to gain 6 positions is the JZ Clubmans, who started in 22nd, have gone all the way up to 16th place. The MPS Performance Kart started in 17th, made their way up to 11th, and so they've had a dramatic race so far, and it only looks set to continue because they're having that fight with the 207 Orange Tree Racing Kart, the BAAD Racing and the JZ Racing as well, both fighting, and it looks as though there might have been contact on the previous lap, as the 77 tried to let the number 1 GKD Racing Kart go so much, and actually dipped a tyre onto the grass, which is, I don't know if any of you know racing, not what you want to do. You'd rather keep it on the tarmac. Of course I know that everybody here, hopefully, knows enough about racing to know that at the very least. The 207, still chasing him behind the 95. Once he gets through on the 95, that's if he does. He's got a whole world of positions to make up. He's got the 36 and he's got the 11 to fight with. So potentially he's lost that little bit of time to those two over the previous few laps, and he wants to make them up. But at the moment, no can do. And at the moment, sits in those positions in behind, currently in 12th place, but looking very racy, looking very quick, and hoping to make his way forward. Speaking of quick, and the fastest lap still held by March Racing with a 40.954. Yes, the laps have slowed down a little bit, but that you can expect that, as they are just trying to manage themselves over the course of a stint. As just as I say that, fastest lap of the race, DAD Racing, 40.927. Thanks. But they're trying to manage themselves throughout the course of a stint. Or you would imagine they're trying to manage themselves over the course of a stint as well. And at the moment, they're doing so pretty much impeccably, going 41.1s to 41.3s, and that's the pace that they think they can maintain throughout the rest of the stint. And if they can, absolutely fair play. I couldn't go anywhere near, but that's why I'm not out there. That's why I'm in here talking about them. But yeah, it's very, very good pace indeed. And they look set to continue it onwards as, well, even 41.1's being set by Alessia Prime, who've gotten to this stint nice and comfortably and straight away with the helicopter services cards as well. Holding pretty consistent pace. Now they've crossed over to 50 laps. We've reached the half century of laps here at the second round of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship. And for the helicopter services team, it's been nice and consistent. 41.1s, 41.2s, 41.3s, of course. Everything happening outside of that, mostly, is because of the fact that they've had to be lapped and the fact that they've had to let people go and all these sorts of things. So they didn't particularly want to do that. Of course, you'd never want to particularly do that, but they're going to naturally have to lose time just because of how early they had their struggles. And so it's unfortunate, but hey, that's racing. The 5 and the 42 close together, but this time it is the Alessia Prime coming through and I think trying to unlap themselves on the Purple Racing number 5 for that second place. I think the 5 just made his way through and the 42 is just sitting in behind. In fact, maybe will make his way through if there is going to be any mistakes, but he's going to hold position for the time being. The 50 through on the 40 as well. That's the Alessia, the other Alessia, going through and being lapped. And apologies, stream once again, because the live timing appears to have paused because it's currently showing qualifying 2, which is not what's currently happening. I'll try and bring up the race session itself as quickly as I can, but for now, apologies for the technical hitches. Of course, this is a rudimentary setup, as it were, and we're just trying to make everything as good as it possibly could be, for your viewing pleasure. But of course, I'm running this off of a hotspot, so it's going to be naturally a little bit difficult. But we're going to be able to make it run, I'm sure. And just like that, just like magic, ta-da! There you go. Looks a lot better. Another kart into the box, and it'll be the 36. So the 36 Motorsport kart into the pit lane. Is that going to be a driver change for the team? It looks as though it will be. So driver change after the first 40 minutes of this race session, and the 36 Motorsport kart sending somebody new out to try and catch up with the pace. We'll see how well they're able to match onto it, how well they're able to keep that momentum up, because they had pretty decent momentum, pretty decent consistency. 41.5s, 41.4s, 41.6s for the team, and well, they'll hope to be able to continue that momentum on throughout the course of the rest of this race. But of course, it's difficult when you have a new person into the kart to really get them warmed up to it straight away, and so it's going to be naturally potentially a bit of teething issues, or potentially as well they might be absolutely fine, don't get me wrong, but if they do so, fair play, absolutely fair play, because it's very difficult to just hop in and keep up the pace with somebody who's been racing for the first 40 minutes of this session, of course, has had all the racing to go through, and now has the consistency to keep up with a lot of these karts out there as well. The 11 leads the 95, leads the 207. That is the fight at the moment for that 9th place. And they're going bananas kart just ahead of the MPS Performance, just ahead of the 207 Orange Tree Racing. So I said there was two of probably the most distinct karts on the track fighting away. There's a third one, because I was talking about the 207 and I believe it was the 36 earlier on having a fight. And now it's the 207, the 95 and the 11 trying to fight. Well, there's lots of beautiful colours on this grid. The 11 currently leads the 95, but for how much longer as the inside line is sent from the 95 that pulls them alongside the 207, tries to seek a gap around the outside, but they're going to filter through the same order that they were into the corner, as there's a late lunge as well from the 39 on the 157. The Bad Racing kart tried to get through on the JZ Racing Clubman, and they will pull alongside, but the 39 taking the racing line, daring the 157 to go off of the asphalt and onto the paved area, the bricking. Didn't do so, backed out, and well, lived to tell the tale. 71%. Towards the end of the stint, the pace appears to be coming up a little bit as they finish off their racing, or this stint, on a very good note. It'll be 41 1s, 41 0s from the top two in the field, and yeah, they've got very, very good pace indeed. That is exactly what they would have wanted to see when they started this race session. And, well, now they can reap the rewards of that momentum or they will be able to as soon as they box, because they're just going to have a massive gap between themselves and the rest of the field, and only looks set to be going up. The DAD Racing Kart last time out, for example, 41.092, or actually, in fact, they've just crossed the line to set an even faster time than that, 41.056. The Purple Racing Kart was in the 41s, now finds themselves in the 40.9s. So, coming towards the end of the stint, they really want to show off the pace that they can do, and that is exactly what they're trying to do at the moment, just to try and stretch their legs at the end of what has been a very long, a very grueling stint as well, with how they've been fighting pretty much non-stop. The Purple Racing 5, that is, not necessarily the DAD Racing Kart. The DAD Racing Kart, I think, has a little bit more in the tank, and who can blame them, because they've held absolutely sensational pace. They just broke free at the front of the field, and from then on, just kept the pace up nice for the time being, as the MPS performance becomes, I believe, the latest into the pit lane. And the number 95. Dropping 5 positions as now there's another contact warning. In fact, the system appears to show that there are 3 contact warnings. They have been registered at the same time, so we can presume that it is the same incident. 3 contact warnings for the DR Autos number 6, currently finding himself in 10th place. In fact, it would not appear that the MPS performance car did come into the lane, so I stand corrected. Just lost a few positions and didn't see what happened with that one, but they had good momentum going on. They still have good momentum going on, having gained 3 places off the start. Of course, they had 8 places off the start. They found themselves in the top 10, now no longer, but they're still, of course, continuing in the race, continuing with as much momentum as they can. And the 95 now looking to try and get through very, very quickly on this lap traffic, has done so with relative ease, and has actually, in fact, in the meantime, made their way through on the 158, finds themselves stuck behind said lap traffic. So that's how you manipulate the traffic to perfection. And the 95 gaining position, and has 2 karts in between themselves and the person they're fighting behind, just for good measure. Could have a fight on the road at the moment, because Much Racing have made their way past GKD Racing and into the top 3, so a good move made by the 53 on the 1, and the 1 sitting in behind, waiting to pounce on another opportunity and make their way back up onto the podium. But it's a good performance from those in the Super Pros, and a good performance from those in the Pros as well, to hang it with them. Of course, we've seen a promotion for Brentwood Karting in class, and they're going to try and excel where they find themselves. And that was announced at the start of this race, and it's always good to see something along those lines. when somebody, of course, earns earns a promotion. That is as a result of a victory last time out in the clubman class. And in fact, 7th overall. So you can understand why they've been promoted classes. And they're going to look to make the most of that, and they are currently finding themselves on the podium in the clubman class. So appears to be paying off for them, whatever it is, that's allowed them to keep that momentum very firmly up. So yeah, as I say, on the podium in class at the moment, they find themselves 7th overall, which is where they ended up finishing last time. They find themselves 7th overall with the possibility of moving further up, of course, with position changes and all these sorts of things that can come into effect. We've had another car into the box. Now, I believe that to be the 157 JZ Racing, the Clubman JZ Racing, in their second race of the year, finding themselves in 5th place in class last time out. And they're going to be doing their first pit stop. Missed their box ever so slightly. Trying to keep on top of everything. Difficult for somebody who can't count, eh? Which appears to be my problem today. But that might mean that we're seeing the JZ Racing Clubman in the pro class in very shortly, and that would be good to see them coming into the lane. And be good for everybody else as well, just because they'll then get an understanding of what the strategy will be based on what they've done previously. So a little bit of a strategic, there's a lot of advantages to having two cars in the same race. There are some disadvantages, that's one of them, where your strategy can be picked, but also you can use that to your advantage as well, because then you can make everybody think that you're going to come in, and then you go on incredibly long. And in this first stint, it has been interesting to see the majority of the drivers staying out, and the rest just trying to build back up from where they pitted very early on. I really need a headset mic for this purpose, as I'm just checking on the stream, of course. As I've said before, feel free to check out the Right House on the YouTube, because there's going to be streams of pretty much every race this year. Every race, hopefully. But yeah, you'll be seeing me multiple times across the course of the year. I believe I'm back for round 3, which will be my next hit in the Pro Karting Series next month. So you won't get too much respite from me. You'll see me once again in the commentary box on the 2nd of May. And, in fact, in 2 weeks' time, no rest for the wicked, we'll be back for the Rye House Kart Club. So it will, in fact, be my next... It will be your next stream and my next stream, collaboratively, because I'll be in the box for the Right House Kart Club, which will be my first experience of that. And that'll be really, really nice to see. It's been bigged up a lot in the circles that I've been in, so that'll be good fun to watch indeed. 157, are they back into the pit box? Indeed they are. Or are they just struggling at the moment? No, I think the 157 is in the lane, in fact. And in fact, they're not the only ones. They're even staying in the lane. In fact, they're not the only ones. But the 77 also struggling to get back out there. And it was in fact a mechanical flag from the 157 that forced them into the pit lane. So not a strategic decision at all, but a mechanical flag for the 157. So not sure what's gone on with that, of course. I can't keep abreast of absolutely everything, as much as I'd love to. But it's a mechanical flag for the 157 that sees them into the lane. The KTM kart not doing the same thing as the JZ Racing Clubman. Is back out there on the circuit now after a while of being in the box. But they've gotten back out. They're going to see what they can do throughout the course of the rest of this race. Of course, they've got 3 hours to go. They've got a long time to set more laps, to put themselves back out there, and hopefully everything should be all sorted. Is that tape I'm seeing on the side of the kart, or is that just a graphical design? Not sure. We'll see. As, of course, they're at the top of the circuit right now. I'm right down the bottom. Right down in race control. So when they come back, I'll give it a close inspection. See if that is indeed the case. I appear to be completely wrong. It does appear to be a design choice for the team. You know what? That's absolutely fine by me. Back into the lane, unfortunately, for the 157, so they're going to hope to make it out there very shortly. The 77 as well, and well, that means that will be the first pit stops in the race for them. Or the second, in fact, in the case of the 157. sunny skies appear to be trying to peek out above our circuit. Of course, it's been a bit of a murky day. I've not been around Hoddesdon the entire time, but from my understanding, it was a little bit... Well, on my way here, it was raining, for example. So it's a little bit of a different situation now. But yeah, that can make the racing circuit just that little bit slipperier, which not ideal. Not ideal. But yeah, we're going to try and... Of course, we're not out there on the circuit. As far as we're concerned, it's good fun to watch. Because obviously the track will be that little bit slippier, which means the drivers will be a little bit more on edge. Yes, they probably formed a line now, so it's not so much of a relevant point. But it very much looks as though it is now a completely dry circuit. But there are a couple of spots where it could be rain, it could be just tyre marks, it could be anything really. Because obviously there's blemishes on the circuit as we go through, and we have done 87 laps on it, so you'd imagine the whole circuit is by now this point dry, but it is a big question as to how much the rain does affect the cuts. And I was here last year where there was an absolutely ridiculous amount of rain for about 5 seconds. The heavens opened on the circuit for literally about 3 laps, and this was within the last hour of the session, so it suddenly became a hell of a lot difficult. A hell of a lot more difficult even. For the drivers out there on circuit. And because it just becomes all that more slippery. And also, because this was a point towards the end of the race, that can also play a huge factor, because they've done a whole race, they've done however many laps they've done completely in the dry, and then they have that shower of rain with about 10 laps to go, and suddenly that can throw everything off. You get into a rhythm, you get into a routine of racing, and then suddenly it's thrown completely out of the window. You have to go all over again. You have to learn what is basically a new track. So it can become rather difficult. By the way, whilst I've been nattering on about rain, the Purple Racing 5 has got all the way to the back of the number 7. So we might have, for the first time in this race, really, a fight for the lead of it. There is 9/10 of a second, a gap between the two at the moment. And yeah, the Purple Racing 5 very much closing that gap down and trying to make a move. In the meantime, there's a move made just behind them. The 42 of the Alessia Prime fighting their way back through the field after boxing early on, and they've made their way past the DR Autos number 6 and into the top 10 on this field, as the DAD Racing kart is now very much under pressure for the lead of this race at the moment. Last time out there was literally a 1,000th of a difference. This time it's a 10th and a half. So the Purple Racing 5 is very much the fastest driver in this field at the moment. I'd say the top 3 appear to have the pace of everybody else, and then you look further back and you've got the likes of Alessia Prime and the likes of Helicopter Services as well, who we can't really take from because they are fighting their way through the traffic and they've got a whole different scenario on their hands. Also, at the same time, the Helicopter Services car is right on the back of the number 39 and is going for the move down the inside into turn number 4, has made the move, is going to be up into 16th place. The 39 is going to try and fight back, but there's only so much they can do, and I think they're going to fall back into the grasp of the number 10. And yeah, there we go. The number 10 goes through laps, and just a wave of the hand to say thank you in terms of making that move. Fastest lap of the race last time out from the Purple Racing number 5, ready to go for a move on the DAD Racing car once they get within range. And at the moment, they've been closing and closing and closing. 0.16 of a second on the last lap is what they've managed to gain on our race leader at the moment. And our race leader, in fact, for the entire race so far, the number 7, which it was. And, well, will be going for the move some point soon, you would think, or will be hopefully trying to build up that move at some point soon. But the pace that they're showing is very promising, and they take that fastest lap of the race by 5 thousandths of a second over the DAD Racing Kart's fastest lap. And will just get closer and closer and closer throughout the course of the next few laps. When are these teams going to decide to box, though? It looks like for the majority of the first hour, they're going to remain out. And in fact, we've passed the first hour, and it's into the second hour now, where they are competing. And, well, we'll see when they do decide to make their box and to make their pit stops as well. Closer than ever to the DAD Racing number 7, 5 tenths of a second splitting the two as they cross the line for the previous tour. And well, they'll continue that fight onwards. Onto the next lap, and onto the next, and then onto the next, and you'd imagine the Purple Racing 5 won't give up. You'd imagine they'll just be persistent in their need to remain in it. .41.239 on the previous lap as well, so getting very close as, well, we've got the number 86 into the pit lane, Project D, number 86 into the box, and will be making their first changes of the race. So that's our second of the top few contenders. The top two pushing themselves to even higher stakes, with both setting personal bests on the previous lap time. And of course, because Purple Racing also already held the fastest lap of the race, they are able to pick up the fastest lap of the race again, and they're going to be right in the fight. And in the meantime, well, they've caught up to lap traffic, so this could play very much into the number 5's favour as they head down towards the first corner, and as they head out of it as well. It's the 40 who's going to be just ahead of them, and through goes the DAD Racing Kart. This could be a crucial time to give themselves a bit of breathing room. Through on the 40 they go, and through goes the Purple Racing 5 as well. And now they will just try and have a look at the 50. The next kart up, the Camtech kart, in 6th place. And well, they're going to be lapped for the first time in this race, I believe, as these karts at the very top of the field, very much pushing each other to very, very high limits and high expectations indeed. And well, they are at the moment matching each other in terms of the pace. They both made it through as well, they head on to the next lap of racing, and then they're going to hope to make their way through again. Still sitting behind, have made their way through now on the 50 and have lapped everybody apart from the top 5 in this field. And the Albertson Autos kart, I don't think will be lapped in this first stint, but I think that will come up as well. We've brought up the century for almost all of the karts at the moment. 102 will be 103 when the DAD and the Purple Racing karts across the line to start the next lap. The Red Spider Racing kart as well, all over the back of the Slippery Bananas. That will be the 24 and the 12. That's for the lead of the Clubman class at the moment. 6 karts in that class, and well, here they are, potentially going to be affecting the fight for the overall race lead. The Slippery Bananas are going to be ahead for the time being. The 24 right in behind, and it's bumper to bumper to bumper with the number 1 trying to find their way through. Maybe on the inside, not quite yet. The 24 seeks the chance though to go to the inside of the race lead of the Clubman class. The 7 tries to hold the overall race lead. The 24 makes their way through as both of them try to just back out and move out of the way of those Super Pros, and in the end do so. Into the pit lane comes one of them, I believe. That was the number 12, but as they head down the main straight one more time, it will continue to be the DAD Racing kart in the lead of things. And yes, Slippery Bananas indeed into the pit lane for the first time in this race. And well, we will see a driver swap, I think, as well, they'll pull up to the weighbridge, make sure that everything is absolutely fine, and then go out once again after their first pit stop of this race. And well, that's going to be the number 12. About 0.2 of a second split the 7 and the 5 on the previous lap time, and I think it's going to be even less on this occasion as the Purple Racing kart has stayed so very close to the back. The last time they both set 41 and zeros, and this time around, what are they both going to set as they cross the line? It's 41.125 for the DAD Racing kart. It's going to be 300ths quicker for the Purple Racing 5 just in behind. Well, is there going to be an opportunity some point soon? Purple Racing kart goes to the inside of turn at number 4 and will make the move up. No switchback possible for the DAD Racing because of the fact that the Purple Racing kart just planted themselves in the right place. So very, very good move indeed. Position taken, and place moved up by the Purple Racing number 5, who now, ironically, after all that chasing, peels off into the pit lane, and they'll be boxing from the fight for the lead of the race. They finally achieved their objective. Now they're boxing. So on lap number 108 of this race, they are going to come into the pit lane and box for the first time. But they're going to try and keep that momentum up, and I'd be interested to see if they decide to have a driver swap. Because of course this driver was technically leading the race, had done so much chasing, had consistent pace, and is now hoping that everything's going to be all right. Back into the kart they go, and they're going to be hoping to continue that momentum onwards. Are they going to be making the driver swap? It doesn't look as though they will. But in fact I lied, they have. The Purple Racing Kart are going to be switching drivers. This could be a crucial point in the race for them, as they're going to be coming out of the lane, probably in about 12th place behind a big fight, or a big group of karts, a big gaggle of karts. The 36 Motorsport, the Brentwood Karting and the Wraith Racing Kart, and indeed they come out just behind them. So the 86 is going to have to do some lapping very, very quickly, and in fact comes out ahead of the number 12 of the Slippery Banana. So doesn't have the slowest of those few karts to make their way through on. Has gotten through on the 21 of the Wraith Racing Kart. The next one up will be the 32 of the Brentwood Karting team, and they're just going to keep trying to make their ways up as they go. We haven't lost anybody in the first hour and 15 minutes of this race, which is nigh on impressive, because of somehow you can just have technical problems. Of course, we have had a couple of problems for the JZ Racing Clubman and the KTM karts, but they both come out of the pit lane all right, and well, they'll continue on hoping to bring something back in terms of their race. .53 into the lane, second of the podium sitters. This appears to be the pit window for a lot of these karts. And it'll be another driver swap for the March Racing outfit. Oh, another driver swap at the top of the race, this being for the March Racing outfit. So that means that we've had, by my calculations, 11 karts into the pit lane of the 24, which means just over half of them still to go. In comes one of them. Didn't quite catch who that was. It'll become apparent very soon. It was somebody in the big gaggle of cars in the middle. It appears to be the 36 Motorsport kart diving into the pit lane on lap number 109, which is what it will be for themselves, and probably making a driver swap. So that will mean that half of the karters have come into the pit lane. One of them's gone for 2. That will be the JZ Racing Clubman, who of course has their problems, or have had their problems, about half an hour ago now. But now, hopefully, have exited the pit lane A-OK. Of course, they've exited the pit lane, but it's the A-OK part that will be the debate. And yeah, back down the lane they're going to come. Are they going to make a driver swap as well? 36 being wheeled down the lane. And yes, they will. In fact, it's the second time that the 36 has come into the pit lane in this race. And it puts them down in 22nd overall, 4 laps down on our race leader. And of course, second place in the overall standings is the leader of that class. So this multi-class thing is difficult to keep track of when you've got a class like the pros, which appear to be so spread out. Or at least at the moment they appear to be, because, for example, you've got Alveston Autos who are in second place. You've got, of course, the outfits that have been fighting for the race lead, in fact. Well, not quite, but right up there. Speaking of the race lead, in comes our race leader, the DAD Racing team, for the first time in this race. They are going to swap positions with the Alveston Autos team, who take the lead. And is it a driver swap as well for the 7? This appears to be a pretty comfortable driver swap, pretty common driver swap at this time. And yes, it will be. And the design of the livery looks a bit like Fernando Alonso. So Alonso's got in the DAD Racing kart. And we'll see how much the momentum from the first stint has helped them out. Of course, they were ridiculously far ahead, considering the circumstances at the start. Have dropped back into the pack just that little bit, but they're going to hope to get the momentum going once again that they had at the very start of the race in the first 50 or so laps. But we'll see whether that's still going to be a possibility, as I think that's the Camtech kart in as well, the number 50, making their pit stop. Their first of the race. And indeed it will be. They've also had a pretty dramatic race, all things considered, because of course started right down the order, started in 16th place, has made their way up to what was, before they came into the pit lane, 10th. So they were in the top 10, but they just found themselves just gaining positions after position after position. Now they've come into the pits for the first time. They're going to hope to keep that momentum up of some sorts, and well, hope that they can finish within the top 10 throughout the rest of the race. They were 4th in class, and in fact 4th overall last time out in round number 1 of our Rye House Pro Kart Championship season. 4th in class and 4th overall for themselves, just off the podium. The GKD Racing kart taking that away. The Helicopter Services number 3, who's had plenty of misfortune today, was also on that podium in 2nd, and it was the Project D kart taking the victory there. And then it was the 36 Motorsport Pro Class kart in 5th place overall. And that's where the differences between the classes come, because you had, of course, the top 4 for Super Pros, 5th and 6th place the Pro class, then 7th was the Clubman, which is now the Pro class of Brentwood Karting. But everybody from the last round showing up here today, which is really, really nice to see indeed, because sometimes those sorts of things can happen where they drop in and out throughout the course of the season. Of course, we've got drop weeks for that purpose, as in comes the Going Bananas number 11. So it's now Alveston Autos that have taken this race lead. It is second place for the DAD Racing team, which impressive considering they've come into the box. Of course, the helicopter services car was in third place, and I was about to mention that, but I believe they've just dived into the pit lane. So entirely ignore me. But yeah, the number 3 looks like they've come into the box, and they made their way up to third place after their disappointing start that they would have been hoping to get over. They appear to have done pretty well, all things considered, as I say, on the podium. So they've just kept that pace up. They were able to stay with that top group, those ridiculous 7 drivers who remained in range of each other at the start. And, well, they hope to remain within range of each other as they continue on throughout the course of this race, as the helicopter services cart into the lane number 3, making the switch. For the second time in this race. I believe our race leader, the Alveston Autos, has now come into the pit lane. And, well, drops down to what will be 4th place overall. Yes, indeed they do. Drop down to 4th place overall, and this is the benefit of the Overcup for a team like the Alveston Autos, or anybody really who comes into the pit lane later, as we've got 15 of our 24 competitors having boxed so far. The benefit is that you have the opportunity to come out in a strong position. So, for example, the DAD Racing kart had a great start, continued that momentum on, now leads the race. Were second place when they came out of the pit lane, and that's a similar situation for the Alveston Autos. Led the race when they came into the pit lane. Of course, they led it by a less convincing margin than the DAD teams. They come out in 5th place. So that's the benefit of coming out later. But earlier on, you can have a short stint, a short but sweet stint, and come out of the pit lane later on. Or earlier even. You can come out of the pit lane earlier, and you can just fly. It's shorter stints, it's sharper stints, but it can mean that over the course of a race you have better positioning. So say, for example, you did, let's say, a 45-minute stint instead of an hour and a half, like the majority of these karts have done. If they did a 45-minute stint and they were able to maintain their focus and maintain the push throughout the entire time and set 40-second lap times, we'll just use 40 as a flat example, and then come into the box and you're doing 40s and everybody else is doing 41s, that's a second a lap, which over the course of, well, we'll reach 128 laps by the time we reach an hour and a half in. That can have a massive benefit for you. So you'll have gained a second a lap. I know it's not as easy as this, but just as an example, a second a lap. And so you'll be gaining 2 minutes, basically, on all the karts ahead. And 2 minutes is, of course, the difference between 3 laps for all the drivers out there. So you've gained 3 laps on your opponents. But then you have to factor in how long it takes into the pit lane. The majority of the drivers here today have been taking a minute. And, well, the lap time has been coming out to 1:41, so you can deduce from that that you lose about a minute in the pit lane. And so, if you were to do 6 pit stops versus 3, you would lose, let's say, 3 minutes. So
if you were to maths that all together, that would mean you lose those 3 minutes, you gain those 2 minutes, and so overall it doesn't quite work out. So overall it's not the strategy you should be going for. But it is an interesting one to debate, because of course, if you're going to lose any more time than that, if you're going to gain any more time than that, then the situation changes just that little bit. So, hey, so many different things that have to factor into a strategy. It is not as simple as it might be in your first race, where you go, oh, fine, well, we'll just match whatever somebody else does. We'll just go one lap to the contrary, because they're trying to get the one up on you, they're trying to get the edge on you, they're trying to find the extra tenths of a second that can round out to a second or two throughout the course of the race. So there's all sorts of debates that you could be having. By the way, in the pit stops, the DAD Racing cars gained 17 seconds on the Purple Racing 5, who, by the way, led the race. There's a 1:32 pit stop from the DAD Racing cars. There was a 1:46 from the Purple Racing 5. So naturally disappointing, I think, for the 5 to have had that momentum, built it up, and just had it all broken down by the fact that their pit stop was slightly longer. And it's not exactly like DAD didn't do a driver change, because they did. So I'm not sure what's been added on to the Purple Racing 5's pit stop there in order to lose them a bit more time to the DAD Racing cars. I'm sure it will all become obvious towards the end of the race. But we will indeed see. Of course, with 2.5 hours to go, we are 3/8 of the way through the race now, and so we start to get an idea of the real picture of the way that this race is going to go. Interesting quirk for the statisticians out there, by the way, on the previous lap time, and of course Purple Racing 5 and the Project D carts have just come across the line to completely ruin the point that I was going to make, but I'll make it anyway. The DAD Racing kart last time out got a 41 minute 33.94 even, can't speak, a 41 minute 3.94. The Purple Racing 5, the previous lap, a 41.294. The Project D, a 41.194. So all but one digit exactly the same. I just thought that was fun. So it was a fun thing to raise, because, you know, I'm a big fan of stats myself, big fan of things like that. It's great to see, like, for example, the timing boards. Absolutely love watching them. And so I've got the YouTube stream up, which you should too. I'm a big fan of interpreting telemetry and data and all these sorts of things. And I'm sure some of these karts have have the technology to be able to do that, which is incredibly exciting. You know, it's a massive step forward, and it can really benefit you. I know that there's I personally know a few karters or a few racing drivers that kart as well, who will really look into their karting data and really look into their racing data afterwards and analyse what went wrong. And you'd be surprised at how much can go wrong in a 41-minute lap, or a 41-second lap. Or not necessarily wrong, but how much can go awry in a 41-second lap. It's a lot. And especially when you are trying to use as much curbing as possible here, especially when you're trying to use as much of everything here as you possibly can, it can get incredibly difficult. The Project D Racing Cup, by the way, last time out, personal fastest with a 41.025, this time a 41.213, but they won't mind the pace too much because they are closing in on the Purple Racing 5 as we see another pit stop, this time from the 21 Wraith Racing karts. They've made their second pit stop of the race with 2 minutes 24 left in this session. They've settled into a rhythm now, I think, the majority of the karters in this race, and that's always the best thing to see when they are in their rhythm, and it's so great to watch. Once they reach a flow state, there is nothing better to be watching at the moment, and it's my pleasure to be watching it at the moment, and watching karters race as we currently have at the moment for 6th place. The March Racing kart is going to be just ahead of Alessia Prime, or was on the previous lap time. There was overtakes made throughout the course of that lap, and it did mean that the 53 is on the back foot and in behind the 42, who managed to make his way through on the previous tour, was 5/10 quicker on the last lap, so unsurprising that he was able to make his way through, and he might be facing a little bit of rear guard action. He might have to do a little bit of defence here. The 77 may well get in the way of this one as well, as the 53 really chasing and trying to find something on the back of the 42 to try and make a move at the moment, but can't quite do so. Will remain in that fight, and in the meantime the 5 has just been overtaken by the 86. So those who pitted later on are coming to blows once again. It's the 2 in for 6th place, and it's the 2 in for 2nd place who are starting to fight. So the racing action, once it hit a lull, is just about to kick off once again, and it should be very interesting to see this fighting go on the circuit, as the 42 has actually put the 77 in between himself and the 53, so it was good traffic management from himself, and the 53 will be hoping to come back at some point and maybe make his way back through. The 86 looking to lap the Wraith Racing kart, the 5 trying to make his way through as well, and might actually set himself up on the outside line, but no, because the asphalt does run out on that outside line there. It tightens up on the exit of turn number 4, and that can become increasingly difficult to make the move. And that's exactly what has been difficult to make the move. That's exactly what has been seen for the reason for the 5 to be remaining in behind. That and the fact that the 86 just typically on a normal lap appears to be faster, but the 42 now just trying to go through on those carts ahead and try to put more carts in between himself and the 53, because as soon as the 53 cleared the 77, there's another one right in between the two. I believe it's the 6 of the DR Autos cart, if I caught that glimpse correctly. So just managing to split the two. The 5 at the moment right on the back of the 86 and really trying to close in. There was 0.2 of a gap in the pace on the previous lap time, and so we might be having this fight for the podium positions very soon. The Alverson Autos cart, the number 10, too far back for anything to really happen for themselves in terms of making the fight for the podium, unless these two continue to fight with each other, which I'm sure they will. But if they fight with each other enough that it gets to the point that they start losing time, and at the moment it doesn't appear as though they have that problem. The 86 leading ahead of the 5 and trying to find an opportunity somewhere to make its way through is the 5, but at the moment the Project D kart ahead, holding firm. There has actually been a warning as well earlier on in the race for the Purple Racing 5 for a contact. This was about 15 minutes ago. So in the chase of the number 86. And now the 86 really giving it to the cart ahead, trying to get them out of the way by any means necessary, bumper to bumper for them, front bumper to rear bumper, and the 86 has not been successful. Apologies to viewers of the live stream if you can see this, because as comprehensive as I thought I was being with the coverage, you don't appear to have been seeing the same thing as me. I'm just checked to see if the stream is back up. Yeah, we appear to have dropped out for about 40 minutes, so apologies for that one. Those of you who have been trying to watch along from home. There is a couple of warnings to tell you about. One of them is just a plain old contact warning for the 39, the BAAD racing cart, and one is one for the Project D 86, which is apparently for Racing Room. Now I'm assuming this is on a lapped cart because it's been quite a while since they've been fighting somebody else, I believe. But yeah, for Project D. Interesting to get that warning now when they have 11.8 seconds to the cart in front and 7.3 to the cart further back. In fact, I believe they might have the biggest gaps further forward and further behind than anybody else, if you round and average and all these sorts of things out. But yeah, 1 hour and 37 minutes left in this session. So you'd expect at least one more pit stop from the majority of the teams. 2 from those who, of course, have to pit twice. But yes, it's going to be short last stints, I believe. The Brentwood karting cart at the moment, finding itself in 9th place, is going to be on the back of the number 3 helicopter services cart. The helicopter services cart, who's had a dramatic race, of course, starting in 10th place, so not quite making it through to the 3rd qualifying session. Then flew up, or flew down the order, in fact, at the start, and flew back up the order later on. At the moment, there is going to be the number 40 of the Alessia cart right in between them, and this is the point in the race where it doesn't necessarily benefit you to hold somebody up, but of course it's going to become an interesting dynamic when those two are fighting for 8th and 9th and you're fighting for 13th place, so you're not going to be too far off of these two. And if, of course, one of them has a problem, has to duck back into the pits one too many times, then the Alessia can find itself in a little bit of a better position. I've got it down as their first pit stop. Now, surely that's not true. And this is where I don't trust myself, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between as well. And in fact, they've got a mechanical flag. No, it's not. It's their second pit stop. I wasn't right. But this one's for a mechanical, so slightly different. And they appear to be looking quite quizzically at the car itself. So, yeah, interesting to see what's going on with that one. We've had another pit stop, by the way, of one of the main contenders for this race, or at least as far as the pro class is concerned. You've got Aviston Autos, who boxed for the second time in this race, so they've got one more to go. So I think, contrary to what I was talking about earlier on with the early pit stop, the long second stint and the long third stint, I think they're going to do the complete and utter opposite to that, which is to say, they're going to go for the long second stint. The long first stint, the long second stint, or even just a shorter second stint, and then a sprint to the end for the last half an hour or so. Or even don't forget, as I mentioned earlier, there is a distinct possibility they just entirely don't do that, and instead they just box later on in the race, like I mentioned, with the car that had done it last year, as well, out of the box. They're going to come, driver swap completed. And yeah, the switch made for that kart. For the driver, for what will be, that will be for the 36, by the way, for the third pit stop in the race. So they no longer have to box, and as far as driver swaps are concerned. So that's going to give them a massive psychological edge on everybody else in this field, just because they have given themselves the performances required, and also they put themselves in a pretty decent position. They find themselves 19th, yes, but with no pressure from behind, no pressure from in front. They are free to operate as they would like for the rest of this race, because they can really manage their own pace. So a smart strategy here, I think, if they could stretch this last stint throughout an hour and a half, which I can't see why they wouldn't be able to do. But yeah, impressive stuff. And hopefully this should all be able to pay off for them, as well, they will come to the end of this race, hopefully in a very, very good position indeed. Yeah, of course, I know that I'm going to be entirely unbiased, which is going to make it slightly boring, but also, of course, provides the opportunity for more people to be represented, because, you know, I can be happy with whoever wins in this state, and that's exactly what I shall do. Because it has been a good race, and that's annoyingly, and this might be an annoying statement for many, annoyingly, racing is the winner. Because of course we had some fantastic racing, especially within the first hour. Racing has been the winner so far today. I think that's just going to be the case for the rest of it. It has been good action on the circuit. It's been very fun to watch, and well, for the rest of this race, it's just going to be about now locking in and trying to decide the overall positions in those classes. Everybody outside of a second, barring one, and that would be the GKD and the Going Bananas racing kart, that look as though they're going to be pretty set in stone in terms of the positions they'll have, and that means that the GKD racing kart will be ahead of the Going Bananas kart side by side, between the Project D and the number 3 of the Helicopter Services, but that was the Helicopter Services kart just being lapped. Project D kart is into the pit lane, and this will be the second time they've boxed throughout the course of this race. So they've got one more in them at the end of the race, or at least one more driver swap. joining them in the box is number 95, the MPS Performance kart, which is in for. Again, this is another one I've got as coming in for the first time, but again, can't be true, because the way that it's not true. In fact, this will be the third time they've come into the pits. So they can be done. And in fact, now that Alpha Timing has had this lovely update where I can see every lap, I shall be fact-checking myself. So just have a reference. DAD have come into the pit lane once throughout the course of this race. Yes, they have indeed. Alessia Prime, they've come into the pit lane. It appears to be twice. Yeah, Alessia Prime have come into the box twice. So they've still got one more pit stop to go. I think the majority of these runners will have one more pit stop to go. Project D fell down to 15th place after their pit stop. Brentwood Karting find themselves in an impressive 4th. Partially down to the fact that they've only boxed once at this point in time. What this is teaching me is I should just be taking notes and not talking about anything. Especially not anything irrelevant. Because I never do that. I never talk about anything irrelevant. But it does appear to be the start of either the second pit stops or the third pit stops for a lot of teams. The majority of them have of course, come in at least once. Fucking on this. I'll mute this as well. Oh. And in the meantime, while I've been having a look at this, I've been almost entirely distracted from the action on circuit. And it looks as though the 95 has had some problems. Now the 95, of course, being the MPS performance number 20. So for them, disappointing that they found themselves with a problem. And I'm going to try and have a look back at this lovely stream that we've got going on, just a reminder, to see if I caught anything. But I don't think I did, you know. That's if it's been running as smoothly as I've been hoping it has done. There's been a few teething issues. Of course, the second stream of the season, as far as the Pro Karting Championship goes, the Kart Club has had 2 as well, and then the Winter Cup was kind of our test, our test bed for the season, as some of it was streamed last time out in for basically all of the rounds that that Mr. Ratcliffe was able to do, and well, he's developed it somewhat throughout the course of the last 6 months or so. And he's probably got it hooked up. He's probably got the camera hooked up in a far better position than I have. But, of course, hopefully we'll be able to get a stream of every single round this season. And I know that, of course, those commentators that I know are coming down are going to be in a position to be able to do so, I think. But, yeah, hopefully we can give you the action at home as much as we can at the circuit as well, so you don't have to make the trip to Rye House to be able to follow all of the action. You can do so from home, or you can do what many do, which is do both, watch both at the same time. And well, of course, ignoring the technical hitches, it has been a very good day in terms of the action that we've been able to watch and the racing that we've been able to watch. As I say, it was incredibly tight in that first hour. Now has petered out into what is a very interesting strategic battle instead, because of course those at the top of the field have only boxed the one time. That'll be the DAD racing team. That'll be Alessia Prime, although in fact Alessia Prime have boxed twice, so I'm incorrect about that one. But DAD have only boxed once, and so that'll be very interesting to see what they can do. And of course, with 1 hour and 18 minutes left, watch on with these drivers as they complete their final pit stops and come into the final stages of this race. Of course, those that have only pitted once, I'd be expecting to maybe box with 45 minutes to go, and that's it. Until the very end, where they box basically at the checkered. It's a strategy that's been tried, it's a strategy that's been tested, and it's a strategy that's been successful. We'll see if it proves fruitful once again. The 207 Orange Tree Racing in for the second time. Joined in the lane as well by the number 1. The GKD Racing, of course, the champions of last year. Opted to do a Max Verstappen, go from the number 33 to the number 1 to just solidify their status as champions. Just remind everybody of their champion status, and that can be, it can be a psychological effect, you know. That's, I think, why a lot of teams would choose, given the option, to go for that number, because in fact they've now done their third and final pit stop of the race. You would think, unless some of them were not driver swaps. But it could be a psychological effect because you know you've got the champion coming up and you can tell that by the number one that's on their kart. And so you could get naturally slightly nervous, potentially thinking, oh, there's somebody better than me, I've got to get out of the way. But it could just be the case that you fight them extra hard, so it can go the other way. It can be on the flip side of things, and we will see. We will see, of course, throughout the course of the season whether they're going to be able to maintain their status as reigning champions or not, as is the case, or as was the case last season out. Of course, it wasn't GKD who were victorious in 2025. Oh no, 2024 even. It was the Helicopter Services team who were the number ones for that campaign, and then found themselves in third place and naturally felt as though they were in a position to race with the number 3 to signify their position as well in the championship. That may well be the reason. They may be racing under that moniker for other reasons, but that would be a pretty good reason why. If that was indeed the case, which it most likely is not. I don't know, the brain of a driver could potentially be wired very differently to the brain of a commentator. Many different championships that could be raced across the course of a year, and well, trust me, I'd be all over racing in them if I wasn't going to be about 6 seconds off, but I would be, so that's why I get to come in here and talk about what the drivers are doing. And it's actually been very fascinating working with a number of commentators throughout the course of my time as a commentator, which I've made it sound like it's at an end. It's very much not. I'll be back many times, at least this year, to hear specifically. But for example, Josh Irfan, I worked with recently, so former GB3 driver and former karter as well, and it was always interesting to get his perspective. And a lot of the time he found he wasn't correcting me, but he was sort of telling me something that it felt to him was really obvious. But it's always really, really good to get those learning experiences and work with somebody like that, because you know you learn off of them, and I'm sure that all of the karters out there would have loved the opportunity to speak to Josh. That all the karters out there right now, in fact, would love the opportunity to speak to Josh and just to try and glean knowledge of such a successful karter, and well, not half a bad commentator either. But yeah, he is a very, very good mind, and he has a very good eye for racing as well, and he has a passion for it, which is the most important thing for any commentator, driver, anything like that. It is so important to be passionate about the sport, and you find, or I've found at least, that motorsports fans are more passionate than any other fan bases pretty much in any sport. I think there's some elements of the football world who are incredibly passionate about that, and you know, when you go to Brazil or something like that, you find many a passionate fan. And also in this country, of course, this is one of the origin places for football, and I believe this is in fact the origin place for football. But you've got that, and then you've got, you know, just motorsport is a global sport, and although it does have its challenges, everything has its challenges, it can be very, very, I'd say it's probably the type of racing that can be the most spectacular, or the sport even that could be the most spectacular. And yeah, motorsport is very, very special indeed. We now have a fight going on for the podium, by the way. Back to the racing action on the circuit. We now have a fight for the podium going on. The leader of the pro class, the Going Bananas team, is fighting with the Purple Racing 5. The Purple Racing 5 has managed to catch up to the back, was 4/10 quicker on lap number 240, and on lap number 241 he's a 10th quicker, and so is 3/10 off the back of those podium positions, and well, overturning that advantage held by the pro class. A little bit up.
Yeah. I think you've gone all silent for some reason. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the battery or if it's the actual think?
We'll give that a go.
Mark, can you hear him now?
Just got the impression that we're a little bit too quiet, so sounding a little bit better.
You're perfect like that.
So, at the moment, of course, the Purple Racing 5, as I say, closing in and is now right on the back and was alongside into the first corner and has managed to make their way ahead. The 5 through on the 11 potentially. A little bit of involvement as well from the lap traffic as well. And, it is very, very good indeed to see that move being made and that position up. And, up onto the podium position, changing it back to where the number 5 has been able to jump up a position and back onto the podium, as we say, with an hour and 9 minutes left to go. And 41.067 to boot, so going quicker than everybody else on that previous lap time. Even more. And now up from 4th place into 3rd, so gaining 1 place off of the start. So a story that's been written throughout the course of the championship, around the course of the day even, but all good. Cheers. And I'm being informed that you can now hear me, which is good. But yes, it is very, very good indeed, the fighting that we've got out there on the racetrack here today. And over the last hour, I'm sure we'll be getting some scintillating action. As the Purple Racing 3 has, the Purple Racing 5 even, flashbacks to last year with the 3. The Purple Racing 5 has managed to make their way onto the podium. And, the 11 is now potentially under pressure from the 42. The Alessia Prime currently in 5th place, a 10th between those two on the previous lap time in terms of the pace, 5/10 in terms of the gap. And so, hypothetically, need to close in by that 10th a lap over 5 laps, and then we'll be able to make their way through. Of course, nowhere near that simple. And in fact, it is going to be 3/10 of a difference, a gap between Going Bananas and Alessia Prime at this point in time. The 11 leading the 42, and potentially the leader of the Pro class losing another position at some point. It's going to be the outside line for the 42, as the 32 might get in the way of this one. The lap traffic may well just get in the way, but in the end, it looks as though they're going to be filtering out one by one. So not too much of a fight given up, and they'll cross the line once again. We'll see exactly what order they find themselves in. Specifically, it will be the Going Bananas kart ahead of the Alessia Prime, and the Brentwood karting kart following the 37 now, going for that 11th place. Of course, the Monkey kart potentially having an influence over that battle for 3rd place. Did not, in the end, have too much of an influence, thankfully, for ourselves and for him. And they have moved out of contention for that fight. 41-0 for the Purple Racing 5 in the last lap, as now the gap between himself and the Going Bananas number 11 is going to be 2.1 seconds. Alessia Prime just 4/10 off the back of the Going Bananas Pro Class kart in that 4th place, and we'll be hoping to make that move very soon, especially as he was 2/10 quicker over the previous tour. Is there going to be a move on for the number 42 on the back of the 11? It will be to the inside line of turn number 4, and nice and comprehensive, simple move made, and the 42 gaining a position. Alessia Prime up to 4th place now, and maybe can set themselves loose and chasing on the back of the Purple Racing 5 that now finds themselves 2.5 seconds up the road, or at least it was on the previous tour. It may well have gone up or down depending on how it was affected by that move. But at the moment, Alessia Prime finding themselves in 4th, and, well, Alessia, the pro team, finding themselves in 6th. So, not a bad weekend for them, all things considered, even if there still has to be some pit stops to go in this race. And Alessia only completed the one of them so far, I believe. And yes, indeed, apart from the first lap, that is the only time they've come into the pit lane. It was about halfway to the point where we're at now, where it was lap number 116, and we are on lap 251. Just ticked over
250 as DAD crossed the line as I was talking. Project D still on 250, it will tick over to 251 then, and then everybody else coming through to lap number 250. Currently, top two on the same lap, 251. Then third down to what will be fifth place even, 250. Then sixth down to what will be, I believe, 11th place. Will all be on lap 249, and then Monkey, 12th place down to 15th place. Will be 4 laps down on our leader. And, well, we'll see how it all stacks up, of course, throughout the rest of the race. It hasn't been entirely a lot in the way of lapping, but it has meant that the top two, very, very good pace indeed, have been able to lap the rest of the field, and the Purple Racing 5 significantly down at the moment by an entire lap on the Project D Racing kart in front. So for them, it's about sealing that podium position, and I think that's what they're going to have. And well, by the end of the race, we shall discover where they will all end up. In fact, the fastest 4 lap times of this race, and this is another one for the statistician people. The fastest lap time was Alessia Prime on lap 187, setting a 40.5853. Then the next 3 quickest lap times, which are by the top 3, which are by DAD, Project D, and Purple Racing 5, they're split by 7 thousandths of a second. That's impressive, and I'm surprised that I've only just noticed that, because those are the sorts of things that I noticed straight away. But that's impressive, the level of consistency that they've been able to hold, as I believe Alessia is into the pit lane and will be making their switch of driver for the last hour of this race. Only one so far for the number 40. They're going for another one, and then they've got one more to the end of the race to make that switch. Unless, of course, they did it on the first lap, which I don't believe they did. GKD Racing on the back of Alveston Autos. This is a fight that's been happening multiple times throughout the course of the day. Alveston Autos have really held themselves up in the fights with the Super Pros, and they're looking to do so once again. And this time is going to be for that 8th place, and they currently hold it. They're not going to let GKD Racing go easily here. They're going to give them a right old fight and hope that that is going to be what takes them into the position ahead, but they will be alongside each other into the first couple of corners on this racetrack, and in the end GKD make the move relatively easily. Alveston Autos would have been hoping to give more of a fight back than that, and they may well do, as that's a big chunk of curbing taken by the one, but not too much time lost. And so the number 1 continues on in 9th place, of course, our champion of last year, as Alveston Autos really looks to set themselves after the reigning champions. They found themselves 6th in class last year, so it's a massive improvement, as I mentioned earlier on in the race. A massive improvement for the number 10 to be trying to make that move up, and still trying to hold it with those top few, of course, 2 laps down on the race leader, but the pace has been good, and of course, if they can finish in the top 9, they can be pretty happy with that one. Although still pit stops yet to be made, and well, still a large chunk of the strategy of this race not completed yet. 2 pit stops completed by Alveston Auto, so they've got 1 more within the final hour to be able to do so. It'll be a scramble in the pit lane at some point, you would imagine, as the Going Bananas kart is the latest into the lane, and they'll be hoping that this will be what will be their 3rd pit stop, I believe, if my maths is entirely correct, which potentially it isn't. Nope, it's not. It's wrong. This will be their 2nd pit stop, so they have 1 more as well in the final hour. So I think they're going to do half an hour sprint to the end, maybe, or they could just fly straight to the end, as now we are starting to get a flurry of pit stops. 2 more into the lane on this lap. We, of course, knew that Going Bananas came into the box last time out and who is going to be coming in on this occasion. We shall see, as they will be coming out of the box, and well, looks as though there may well be a problem with the kart of, well, the 77s made their way through nice and cleanly into the tent that they needed to make their way into. I believe it might be the 157 of the JZ Racing Clubman that's having further problems. And again, huge shame if that is indeed the case. Who's that into the box once again? The next kart, the number 11, is going to be in the Going Bananas kart once again into the box, and well, we'll be going out of the lane as soon as they possibly can, and they'll be throwing themselves back onto the circuit as quickly as they can. So is that 2 successive pit stops for the Going Bananas outfit? I believe that to be, and so that will be big, because that means they've finished all of their pit stops. That's a different strategy I've not seen before, if that is indeed the case, and they've done their 2 pit stops in 2 laps. That would be massive, and that would be incredibly impressive if they're able to pull that one off. A gamble, but they've given it a go here, and well, full respect to them for doing so. As we've now ticked over to what will be officially our final hour of racing here today at the Rye House Pro Kart Championship, round number 2 of the season, and we've had an interesting strategy battle that's been developing across the course of the race. Not yet over, but very much alive indeed. Of course, we've seen some karters going in and then going in straight after. Looking at you, Going Bananas, we've been seeing some karters taking 1 more pit stop into the final hour. We've been seeing 2 more pit stops being taken into the final hour as well. So there's lots to go off of. And when you have this much information to go off of, you have no information to go off of. So this will be very interesting indeed. There's been a couple of warnings. One about 18 minutes ago, to be specific, and it's another contact warning for Project D, and then a visor warning that's just come through for Monkey Monkey. And of course, the visor warnings that can come through, as stated in the official rulebook, are, if I can find it, if not, then I'll be going for some more searching. Well, we'll be right back with you. Apparently, I never had that open. Disagree. But technology can have a mind of its own sometimes. Anyway, it's been a very good race indeed. We've got, of course, those visor warnings coming in the last hour. We've got more racing warnings coming in the last hour. And it can be where the fatigue can catch up to you as a driver, and well, at this point in the session, it can be very difficult indeed to keep that stamina up. Of course, now mine's flagging, and the drivers will be even worse because they've, of course, kart racing is an underrated workout. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. because especially in an endurance race like this, because you are throwing this thing lap after lap after lap, corner after corner after corner. You think about how many corners, at least those in the first stint did. I think we got to about, what was it, 120 laps in the first hour and a half or so. And, 120 laps, 10 corners, 1,200 corner turns. No matter how small, that is a lot of corner turns to be going through, and obviously you've got that mental side of the game as well. You're having to deal with everybody racing around you and racing with everybody around you as well. So there's a lot to consider when racing. There's a lot to do when racing as well, and so your endurance can be knocked down just that little bit, and your stamina can see mistakes come out of you. That's why we've got the forced 3 driver changes rule. But of course, that doesn't quite mean everything. And of course, as well, we have had it in the past where the strategy, as the 21 is into the pit lane, as is... I'm trying to work out who else that is in the pit lane. Well, we know the 21's in the pit lane for sure, and they just passed the commentary box without any obvious sign or indication as to who they were. But either way, I've lost track of my point. We know the 21's coming, the Wraith Racing kart, that is currently sitting in 20th place overall, and they are on for their final stop, I believe. I believe they've got one more pit stop to complete. Or one more driver change, at the very least. Unless they did a driver change on lap number 2, which would be not impossible, but would be an interesting choice at that point in the race, of course, early on. And it really gambles on those in the karts being aware for that whole time, which can be more difficult than you would expect. Somehow, after still 3 hours of racing, we still have drivers in contention with one another, and it'll be the 53 and the 1, the latest ones to be doing so, and they have been for a while now. The 53 leading the 1, and the 37 trying not to get involved in the background. But sometimes you just can't help. You just can't help it, and you find yourself getting invested in the fight before you know it, and then you find yourself involved in the fight before you know it, which can be a dangerous game to be playing, but we will see whether they are actually going to have an effect on this fight or not, as over the last lap the gap was closed down by 0.5 of a second to just 0.1 of a second between the two drivers, and there might be an opportunity here to the inside for the number 1, the GKD Racing Kart, trying to find a chance, and he didn't go for it, but the March Racing Kart looked like he may well have predicted a send, and so went a little bit wide, but no harm done there, no anything really to note for that fight for the time being, but they're going to come down the main straight, and it's going to be all down to who's able to get the better exit out of the two, and it looks as though it's going to be able to be the March Racing Kart who remains ahead for the time being as they head on to the next lap, but another 0.085 of a second gain by the GKD Racing Kart, so there's going to be an opportunity somewhere soon to go and get through, and in fact he's done so in the first couple of corners, and that will be the move that the number 1 would have wanted, through on the March Racing Kart and up ahead of all of the pro drivers into the Super Pro range. I've just commentated over a fight between the 1 and the 53 with the microphone off. But of course, if you want to watch it back, you can go to the YouTube. You can hear about it as it was happening, and the GKD Racing Kart set it up well over a couple of laps, and into the first couple of corners they went, and it was the number 1 who took full advantage of the March Racing Kart. I think getting a little bit scared. Scared might be the wrong word, but feeling a little bit of the pressure that was being placed on his shoulders by the number 1, because the GKD Racing Kart was seeking an opportunity out of every corner, and eventually you knew something was going to crack for somebody, and it just so happened that it was the number 53 that cracked first. It was the number 53 that blinked first, and they were both pushing each other on 2 incredible heights, and you'd expect them to do the same thing as they both try and catch up to helicopter services. Of course, it'd be a late charge from them if they're able to do so. 17 seconds splitting them at the moment, so I find it very unlikely that's going to happen. A contact warning, by the way, from Wraith Racing within the last couple of minutes has been added to their name, and the 21 that finds himself down in 20th place overall is not going to be particularly happy with that one. But yeah, 47 minutes left in this race session, and everybody finding a consistent rhythm. The top few, 41.2s, 41.3s, potentially even 40s, as Purple Racing 5 set on the previous lap time. But speaking of the Purple Racing 5, I believe they are going to be duking it out for the podium positions as it stands, or at least at the moment they stand in that podium position, and they are going to be trying to continue on with the way that their race is going so far. Alessia Prime 6.67 off of the back, so will be opportunities later on if they want to be able to take it, and they'll have to set themselves up well in order to do so. I don't think it's very likely that they're going to be able to make those positions up, and I think the majority of the positions are decided, even though the last pit stops have not been undertaken. It's going to be difficult, in fact, to watch those be undertaken, because of course now I can use the marker of the positions that they lost on a lap to see how long they took in the pit lane. Now I have to go through each individual lap and count to see how many pit stops these drivers have made. But by the end of the race it will become obvious, because they'll all remember the rules. They'll all know that there needs to be 3 driver changes, and they will box right at the end as well. This grid has basically filtered out into the Super Pro, and I talked about how competitive and how wildly different the Pro class could be, whether they could be competing at the top or competing down at the bottom. Now that it's all filtered out, the top 6 are Super Pros. Then you've got 8 karts in a row of the pros, and then of course you've got Monkey Monkey, who have had problems. Then you've got the top 2 of the Clubman class. So there has been problems for a lot of the karts here today, and in fact KTM and Camtech are back out on the circuit, and fair play to Camtech especially to be 68 laps down on the leader and to be back out on the circuit. KTM have had their own problems a couple of times throughout the course of this race, so has JZ Racing Clubman, the number 157 especially, and the 95 as well. Looked like they were down and out, but they have been able to make their way back out into the race, and absolutely fair play to them for being able to do so. We didn't quite see what happened with them, but they're back into the race, and they will be hoping to pick up as many points as they possibly can for the championship standings, which of course they're not going to be worrying about too much now, but picking up as many points as you can so that you can afford a drop round is what they're going to do. The 86 into the pit lane, and is this going to be the final pit stop for the Project D Racing team? We shall see. Yes, it will. It will be the final pit stop for the 86 in this race, if indeed they do decide to do a driver swap. And well, they're pitting from second place, and this is the benefit of pitting later on, like I said, and they come out in second place in behind the DAD Racing kart by an entire lap, just ahead of the Purple Racing 5 by 1 second, and it might be a move here from the 5 down into turn number 4. He's going to try and make the move. The 86 has done this move so many times where they've tried to switch back on the exit, but they don't quite have the grip anymore to do so, and so they're going to have to work a little bit harder into turn 5. They'll be neck and neck as they head down towards turn 6 and 7, but the inside line will be the preferred one for the Purple Racing 5, who makes their way through and up into that second place. So snatches on the opportunity, pounces on the chance to move up. And now the Project D Racing kart will be hoping to fight back onto what will be lap number 282. The difference between them 0.2 of a second, and they're going to hope that fighting will continue onwards, and they will continue to try and really have a go at the number 5. But of course, they'll be into the stint now. Will the 5? They'll be into the rhythm, and it's just about the Project D Racing kart trying to get into said rhythm and trying to settle down and catch up. In the meantime, the 36 Motorsport kart on the back of the 207 as well might be making a move into turn number 5. Can't quite find the opportunity, but the 207 is going to go wide. Through goes the 36 Motorsport kart. That's up into 12th place, and that is a good move, where they just put the Orange Tree Racing kart under so much pressure that they succumbed to it and dropped down a position. The Purple Racing 5, by the way, over the last lap has managed to eke out a 3.5 gap on third place even. Unless he Prime 7.3 back, just that gap has been gradually going up and up and up and up and up. And it doesn't look as though the 42 is going to be in any contention for the podium position at this point in time. An 0.8 of a second splits the Project D and Purple Racing 5 karts, but crucially what splits them as well is the number 158, is the JZ Racing Pro kart, and they'll be hoping they get out of the way so they can get through and attack. But honestly, I don't think they've got the overspeed to be able to do so. I don't think they've got the overspeed to be able to attack at this point in time, at this late stage in this race. Of course, late with 40 minutes to go, because it's a 4-hour race, and so the opportunities are going to be there for the taking in the last 40 minutes, where the most mistakes will be made out of the entire race, but they might not be punishable mistakes. They have to turn them into punishable mistakes. If a tree falls in the woods, did it really make any noise? That's the kind of vibe we're going on here. over the last lap, it appears to be the case that the 11 has dropped a couple of positions behind the 207 and the 36. So the 36 Motorsport car moving up into the top 11 now, the 207 moving up into the top 12 and going bananas into 13th place. I'll be honest, I was watching the gap between the second and third place karter. It's going up and down, and it's just swinging. The favour is swinging between these two karters significantly, and it's looking very, very impressive indeed, the fight that they've got going on and the fight that they look like they're going to continue to get on, because Project D eked out 0.2 of a gap in lap number 188. By lap 189, Purple Racing had opened it back up again and had opened it up to 1.7 seconds. So the difference between the two is significantly bigger than Project D would have been hoping for, and I really don't think they've got the overspeed, as I said a couple of minutes ago, but we'll see as they cross the line, the gap between the two, 0.2 of a second, or 2 seconds even, and 0.2 of a second is what they gain on the previous lap, as the fastest lap of the race has been pumped in by the Purple Racing 5. Impressive that at this point in the race, at this point in the stint, they've been able to get the quickest of all on lap number 290, a 40-second 0.830 lap for the number 5. Very, very impressive indeed. Also, lots of personal bests coming in. The DR Autos getting a 41.095, which is a personal best for them, a 41.311 for the Slippery Bananas, and a 41.332 for the JZ Racing Pro Team. Impressive. To see that pace late on in this stint and late on in the day. Of course, I think there's one more pit stop for the majority of the karts out there on the circuit, and if not, well, then they're in a great position to be able to maximise their lead, and that's of course those, and of course in that situation I mean those who are looking very, very impressive indeed for their positions, because if they haven't done their mandatory 3 driver swaps, then they will be in a whole world of hurt. If they have, then they'll be absolutely fine, and they'll be on top of the world as everybody else comes into the pit lane. But it looks as though this is going to be a race that is won on strategy. They're all won on strategy to an extent, but this one more than most others, just because of how tight the racing has been, and well, how much time they're able to eke out when they don't need to pit more times than somebody else out there on the circuit. It's looking very good. Looking very good indeed for a grandstand finish here in Hoddesdon. And, well, we shall see who is going to be the driver and the team that comes out on top. Don't forget, they will take home if they do take the victory, they will end up taking a 50-point tally home. And second place will be picking up 46 points, third 44, and fourth 42, and from that point it's 1 point for every position. So every position gains a point, and so that's why you've seen karts having real problems coming back into it regardless. There is also points for pole position in each class as well. So that will benefit specifically those who took pole position and were able to set good laps in the 3 qualifying sessions that we had, which is in particular Project D, who will be, if they win this, taking 51 points home. It's unlikely that they will, so it's more likely they'll be taking either 47 or 43 points home for second or third, or 47 or 45 points home in second or third place. Then March Racing taking the points home in class there, and well, with the way that their race has gone, they look like they might be taking a pole victory, although it's a little bit harder than that on paper. Oh, easier than that on paper, harder than that. All things considered, no less than 3 pro drivers made it through to the third round of qualifying, and then Bad Racing, the only one of the London class to make it through to Q2. So for them, another point, and it doesn't offset their day completely. It'll reduce the deficit that they're having to Slippery Bananas and Red Spider Racing by 1, of course, but that one could be absolutely crucial from the end of the championship, because don't forget, it's incredibly close sometimes. It's incredibly close. Last year it was actually 1 point that split the top two in the Clubman class last year. DR Autos taking the win, Slippery Banana second place, but they had 276 points to 277, so one pole position, one fastest lap versus, DR Autos would have seen it overturned. So we know that 1 point is absolutely crucial. Bad Racing finished third place and a distant, quote unquote, 21 points off DR Autos at the top. So the opportunity could be there for them to pick up that victory. And of course, DR Autos have made a step up to the Pro class this year, and at the moment they find themselves, in terms of today's race, in 8th place in class. In terms of overall, they find themselves in 5th place in class, so a little bit better than that. And I think pretty decently matching expectations is what I'd expect they would feel as though they're doing at the early stages of this season. But of course, 9 rounds to go, as we've got a lot to keep an eye out on. Lots of different warnings, one being for the 50, for the pit exit line, another one being 37, visor warning for the Monkey team, a contact warning for the Wraith Racing team, and then the mechanical flag for the helicopter services. That's all come in within the last 20 minutes. And, helicopter services are fortunate to get that mechanical flag because they've been so very good to see the comeback throughout the course of this race. Half an hour to go then for round 2 of your Rye House Pro Kart Championship. We've got D80 Racing at the very top of the field. They're a lap ahead of the Purple Racing 5 in second place. Project D look like they've fallen off too far now off the back of Purple Racing 5, so that looks like top 3 positions potentially assaulted, although Alessia Prime gaining on Project D over the last few laps. I was just speaking about DR Autos a couple of seconds ago, and they've just gone and pumped in the fastest lap, or their fastest lap of the race. But it's a pretty decent fastest lap, all things considered. I mean, it's just having a look now at the fastest laps, it is the 7th fastest lap in terms of the session. Of course, we don't know where it stacks up when you take every single individual one of everybody's 300 laps in. But in terms of the fastest laps of each individual in the race, it's a pretty decent one. Or it's actually 8th fastest, because 36 Motorsport pumped in a 40.9 at one point earlier on in the session. So it's still pretty decent lap time, all things considered. And as I look at it, more drivers have beaten it. But even so, still a pretty decent lap, especially at this point in the session, a 41.070 for the number 6. They're trying to chase down Going Bananas, 3.9 seconds behind.
I am seeing some impressive pace overall from some of the teams later on in this race. 36 Motorsport, a very good example of that. They were able to set the last few laps. They've been in and out of the 41.0s, 40.9 is what I meant to say. And in fact, the last lap they set a 40.887, and once again they're back on it with a 41.073. And then also in that sort of range, the helicopter services team, who've been in and out of it the last 4 laps especially. They've managed to set very, very, very consistent lap times. And as I said earlier, consistency is key, as will always be maintained. Consistency is key as well. Lap 301, they set a 40.965. Lap 302, a 41.022. Lap 303, a 41.002. And then lap 304, a 40.968, so only 3 thousandths off of their personal best, and actually matching their second personal best, which was set on lap number 295. And so, consistency has been proven to be key. And, well, in fact, on the last lap, speaking of pace, Purple Racing 5, fastest lap of all, as they tried to extend their gap ever further over the Project D team and make sure that they are able to snatch that victory. In terms of that little fight that's been going on for a while, it wouldn't be the overall victory, of course, it'd be second place, but still, very, very good pace indeed to be showing at this point in the race. And, well, 25 minutes to go, they're going to be having a look indeed at, well, just trying to maintain that pace throughout the course of the race, which is coming almost to an end now. You think about it, we've just ticked over 300 laps for the majority of drivers and teams as well. DAD have ticked over onto lap 310 of their race. And if you work out how long you got, so you got like a 41-minute lap time, a 41-second lap time. I've done that plenty of times throughout the course of today. A 41-second lap time. So you can deduce from that that there's about 300 laps across the course of 3 hours and 30 minutes, which is, as we all know and aren't trying to do off the top of our heads now, 210 minutes. So that means the likelihood is that we're going to have 34 more laps of racing, if my math serves me correctly. Definitely doesn't, by the way, just to clarify. But yeah, if it does, mightily impressed with myself. But I can almost guarantee you that is not the case. But yeah, the DAD racing kart at the top is going to be leading everybody else onto it, and most likely is going to be lapping the Purple Racing number 5 very soon. That's the extent of the pace that they've been able to have. Just trying to keep an eye out for where they are on the circuit. As well, don't forget as well, we've still got pit stops to go. We've still got one more pit stop in this race for the DAD racing car. We've still got for the Purple number 5. Well, inconclusive. Because they spent a while in there, so I think they came back into the pit lane and they did their 2 stops there, but whether they made the driver switch, I would be surprised. And honestly, didn't see it, so cannot confirm or deny. So it'll be an interesting one towards the end of the race, whether they are indeed going to have to box Project D for themselves. It is 3 pit stops that they've been able to have: lap 281, lap 220, and lap 97, which means there was one stint that was over 100 laps and one stint that was just under 100 laps. And as we come to the end of the race now, the last pit stop was on lap 281. If I'm right about my calculations, it'll be about an 80 lap stint. So in fact, I might be not too far off with that one, but it should be pretty, pretty extended stints, all things considered. Then Alessia Prime in 4th place, they've done all their pit stops as well.
They came in on lap 34. They came in on lap 104. So it was a 70 lap stint. Then it was an 128 lap stint, so a mega stint, and it looks like it may well be 100, just over 100 laps to the end of the race for the last driver in the Alessia Prime kart. But if they can put themselves in a prime position, then they'll be in a very, very good stead come to the end of the race. And of course, the DAD racing car definitely has to box one more time. So this should be very interesting in terms of who is going to be coming out in that race victory. DAD currently hold that position, but I don't think they're going to be in there for the rest of the time. They may well try to do, of course, what happened last year when I was about, I believe it was the penultimate round of the season, when the leader of the overall class tried to take the victory. And in fact, it was GKD who find themselves in 5th place. They were able to get the overcut, the massive overcut on Helicopter Services for that win in the end. And what a win. It ended up being Camtech on the podium there. And not quite been the same for them today. You throw it back actually to this time last year, which I think would be an interesting thing to do. It was Helicopter Services who took the victory there, 2nd place for DAD Racing. So that bodes well for them to come 2nd place once again, but of course they want a little bit more than that. The Purple Racing 5 came 3rd place, and they again are looking to get a little bit better than that. Wraith Racing came 4th, which isn't going quite so good for themselves. In fact, I believe the step down from the Super Pros to the class that they find themselves in now is going to be a whole world of good for them going into the Pro class. We'll see how they will compete across the course of this season. But now, as it stands, Wraith Racing having another poor or disappointing race. It looks like they might have had problems with the karts because they are now 50 laps down on our race leader. So you would imagine so on lap 266 is what they are, and Camtech might catch up and overtake them. And as I've said before, 1 point could be crucial in the championship, as it has proven to be last year, as one of the championships decided by just that 1 point, one of the championships decided by 3, so very tight at the very top of some of the fields. And at these early stages, you don't really want to be thinking about the championship when there's no real championship to fight for, but promising signs. Purple Racing 5 continues to put in those strong laps. That is the 2nd fastest lap of the race that they've just set with a 40.848, which is slower than their fastest, but faster than anybody else's fastest. Faster than anybody else's fastest by 5 thousandths, slower than their personal best by 0.045. Purple Racing, by the way, keeping up impressive, consistent pace at the end of this race. I was talking about consistency being key a couple of laps ago in the way that it's looked. They've been setting, well, lap 3:14 to what is now lap 3:21. They've not jumped out of the 40s at this point in time. They set a 40.814, they set a 40.896, they set a 40.936.
and then an 848, 832, fastest lap of the race with an 800, an 8th, then 989, 824. You know, it's just impressive pace, and they've managed to breach that crucial 10-second gap to DAD. So there might be the opportunity that this one isn't quite over just yet for the race lead. Even if we don't take pit stops into consideration, it might just be the fact that they are able to make their way in late on in this race and make their way up positions, and that would be absolutely incredible for such a late charge in the race for the Purple Racing number 5, who in fact has not led the race a singular time. They've barely been in second place. They were, for a decent chunk of the first stint, they were for about, as they've just gone into the 0.7s, but in fairness they have been actually in second place for the majority of this race, second or third, but they haven't touched the top of the standings. So that's mainly because it's been held by DAD for so long. It's been lap 5 to lap 115. So 110 laps they led the race and then came to the pits. Then they went back up as Alston Auto's box, and ever since then it's been 200 laps. They've spent 310 laps in the lead of the race, and they might not even come home victorious. But that's if you base it on the pace. If you base it on the fact that they are 9 seconds ahead, then they do. But if you base it on the fact that Purple Racing 5 is gaining consistently lap after lap after lap, then it starts to become a concern for the AD. We're going to have to keep going. They can't afford to just calmly get to the end and coast to the end. They cannot afford to do that. They need to continue to push for at the very least, another 5 or so minutes. And then they can start to think about it. Because like last lap, 41.594 for DAD. For Purple Racing 5, 40.850. They've gained by 3/4 of a second on that lap. And if you were to do the maths, which I'm going to do right now, if they are gaining by 3/4 of a second per lap, then they would be able to catch up by... The gap is closing. The gap is very much closing. And, well, if DAD have any more laps like that, 0.5, then they can be in a world of trouble. They need to stay ahead of the traffic. That's the first thing they need to do. They need to stay on top of the traffic and get through as quickly as they can. Then, the next thing they need to compete with is they need to be able to just not make any mistakes. They cannot afford to put their foot off the throttle in any way, shape or form. 41.3 over the last lap, DAD. For Purple Racing, 41. It's the first time they've dipped into the 41, but it's still a 3/10 improvement. So they would need to be gaining by that much for about 35 laps, which they won't have the pleasure of doing. It looks like we'll be having about 20 more laps, as I say, towards the end of the race. So we'll end on about 350, and that could be crucial. It's the first round of the season, which is of course a month ago, so not necessarily the most representative, but 344 laps were completed by our race victors, the Project D team and Helicopter Services second, GKD Racing third. They both entered on 343 laps, so very potentially there could be 15 laps left of racing. Actually, that seems pretty accurate, as the AD back on the pace, 41.0 with Purple Racing catching and catching and catching. So they are going to be starting to play on the mind of the DAD team as personal best thrown in by the 38 Motorsport of 40.848 over the previous tour, and in fact they've just set to 41.031 to prove me wrong. Another 0.2 of a second gained by Purple Racing on the previous lap time. Once again they're going to be coming to the line and there's going to be more improvements. And for DAD, 41.1 for Purple Racing number 5. It's going to be a 40.844. So an improvement by 1/4 of a second, but they need about 3/4 of a second in order to really make that gap up.
6.4 the gap between the two at the very top of the field, 40.856 last time out from the Purple Racing number 5. So we will tick over to 9 minutes left in this race session, and we'll tick down for the remaining drivers. So not expecting many more pit stops in this race, as well, speaking of, I think we may well just be seeing a couple more throughout the course of the rest of this race. Helicopter services through on Alverson Autos at the very top of the field, 4th, 6th and 7th place, 3 through on the 10, and that might be a fight. That will continue on mainly because there's so many cars that look like they're in the same segment of the circuit, including those two racing right now, and well, in fact, you can have a look. There is going to be another large group of cars, somehow none of them on the same map, apart from the Brentwood Karting and the Going Bananas cars, 32 and 11, ready to go for a fight, and they went side by side into the first corner. The 11 is ahead of the 32, but is there going to be an opportunity to fight back for Brentwood Karting, who just got overtaken? Not quite yet, and in fact it's going to be alongside the number 53, trying to go through and lap, and that's a contact and spin between the two. The 32 was just trying to go through on the inside line. The 53 was trying to go to the outside, and I don't know if there was a bit of a squeeze, but there was contact with the wall definitely, and they both were sent spinning around. The Brentwood Karting car, the Brentwood Karting kart even, is going to recover relatively all right. But the March Racing kart on the outside is going to lose a position to the 36 Motorsport kart that was putting pressure on them. The Brentwood Karting car is going to lose a position as well to the Going Bananas one, but a big moment at the end of this race, and they're going to be furious and furiously chasing back up to that pack. You would imagine the 53 has finally got their way and has made their way through to lap the 32 for what will be the first time in this race, and they're both going to be, you'd think, working together at this point to try and close that gap. But a dramatic moment, and we've seen a few spins today actually out there, but we have seen every single one of the karts out there for the majority of the race, despite the fact that the 207 Orange Tree Racing kart finds itself in the pit lane right now. Everybody else has been able to make it to the end of the race, and of course we hope that they are able to do the same thing as the Alessia kart loses a position to the DR Autos. That'll be the 6 against the 40, fighting it out and duking it out for the top 10 positions at the moment, and the 40 is going to be just behind, but the 12 is going to be putting them under a little bit more pressure as they look to unlap themselves at the late stages of this race as well. The 5 right ahead of them, the Purple Racing kart, might have had an effect on that fight, and it actually looks as though the 6 has been able to break free. It's quite significantly, 4/10 of a second, splitting the two drivers at Alessia Prime and Project D, split by basically nothing as well, 0.452, splitting the 86 and the 42. And 42 hoping to catch up late on in the day. In fact, I can't see the 86 in that group, so there we go, there's the 86. But yeah, very, very close together indeed, the 86 and the 42. Does that be a late on fight for the podium positions? They head around the final corner with the 86 ahead, but a wide line taken and a very tight conservative line from the 86 means that into the first corner they are going to be alongside each other. The 42 tried to pounce on the opportunity of a poor final corner but couldn't quite do so. The 86 remains ahead once again. They'll go into the next braking zone and the 42 will jig to the outside line. 86 will defend the inside. That's a different strategy to the one that they've taken earlier on. And there will be a bit of a tap between the two as the 42 continues to try and take the outside line, maybe trying to switch to the inside using all of the curbing that they can to get the extra rotation to pull alongside. And will they be pulling ahead of the 86 or will they just sit back? They will just have to sit back, but it's very close between those two, and well, they will continue on to what will be the 339th lap for themselves
and continue this fight. They have to have superb stamina to make it to the end of this race and still be scrapping away, not just be mindlessly lapping people for position. And the 86 holds the inside once again. That appears to be the defensive line of this driver, as the 42 on the outside is furious with himself, as he just looks like he might have just tried to turn under braking, or turn with the brake pinned down, and he is furious. You can tell at that moment of a podium potentially, or most likely at this point, going awry, and the 86 will be happy that the defences that he was putting on have worked. And 3 minutes 44 left in this race session. The 42's missed a chance of a podium. 4th place though, still not too bad for Alessia Prime. But it's frustrating those moments because you feel as though there could have been so much more. But instead the gap's 4.490 between the two. Now the closest gaps on circuit are Avalston Autos up to Helicopter Services, and March Racing up to 36 Motorsports as well, as the Alessia 40 close to the back of the number 6, but not necessarily that close, because it's 2.3 to 2.9 seconds the gaps between those 3 cars, or those 3 battles respectively, as we're now to the final stretch of this race, and we can really reflect on what has been a superb performance indeed from our leaders, DAD Racing. Now, they put on an absolute masterclass in how to lead a race, how to maintain the lead of a race, and hopefully for them, for their sake, how to come to the end of a race victorious. The Purple Racing 5 also trying to do the same thing to maintain that same pace up. And this is going to be a crucial time in the race where you don't want to make mistakes, as the Alessia Prime Carter has learned. Nobody else wants to make a mistake at this point in the race. There has been a couple of spins today, and well, now when the pressure's ramped up, this can be where the mistakes can get drawn out from all of the Carters. So they just have to keep their heads down, as there's in fact a personal best from our race leaders, DAD Racing, at 40.819, which means that they are 300 slower than Purple Racing 5's fastest lap. And don't forget that there is a extra point, or there is an extra point even, for fastest lap. And well, as we've seen previously, fastest laps can decide championships. Singular points can decide championships. And well, they are going to be coming to the end of this race, hopefully. A very, very close indeed. A personal best for Alessia Prime at 40.824 for themselves. And in fact, 8th down to 10th, all set to 41.1 on the last lap. So matching themselves on pace, even if they're not as close on the circuit. The final minute ready to get ticked down. And so we're going to have 2 more laps of racing, you would imagine, with DAD halfway through the lap. And it's been an impressive performance from the number 7. Throughout the course of this race, they've just maintained that consistency. They've maintained that pace to a level that nobody else has really been able to manage. They've been able to get 40.8s, 40.9s again and again and again. And even though Purple Racing 5 have done the same thing, they have faltered on a couple of occasions they would have hoped to not to. But it's basically been a perfect day for the number 7, who will think he will be coming to the end of the race as soon as he possibly can. And well, he's currently stuck in a little bit of traffic, 24 ahead of him, of the Red Spider Racing cart. Might be getting in his way, but it's not getting in the way of the celebrations at all. 20 seconds to be ticked down to see if there's going to be one more lap of racing. Marshals will be holding those checkered flags, thinking about when they are going to fly the flag to signal the end of the race. And with 9 seconds left to go, it looks as though we're going to be getting one more lap of racing here today. Indeed we are. The final lap marker has been flashed up. We will be seeing DAD Racing heading on to one more lap, and it's been a supreme performance from themselves. Purple Racing 5 have been very impressive in this final stint, but not quite able to get close enough to challenge for that race lead and for the race victory. It's 3.7 the gap between the two as they headed across the line for what was the 346th time, and as they will head across the line for the 347th, it will be the number 7 who will be taking that victory home. An impressive performance, leading pretty much from start to finish. And that will be DAD Racing on top for round number 2 of the Rye House Pro Kart Championship here in 2026. An impressive performance capped off with maximum points in terms of the race taken home. And it'll be second place for the Purple Racing number 5. Close, but no cigar for the team that managed to end up just 3 seconds behind. We will have our victors as well in Slippery Bananas in the Clubman class coming across the line, and they've taken that victory. Alverson Autos will be taking the win in the Pro class as well, and well, they will head around and finish off their lap, and they have done so right about now. They are at the end, and we've got one more kart ready to go for the checkered flag, and it will be the Brentwood Karting number 32, who I believe has just ducked off into the pit lane. But that rounds off round number 2 of our Rye House Pro Kart Championship season for 2026. It's DAD Racing on top from 3rd place on the grid. Purple Racing 5 will join them on the podium, and Project D will be in 3rd place. Alessia Prime were in 4th, with GKD Racing in 5th, and Helicopter Services in 6th in class. Then we get Pro Class victor Alverson Autos in 7th overall, 36 Motorsport in 8th, March Racing in 9th, rounding out the podium there with DR Autos just off of it. Alessia in 11th place, 4th, or 5th even, in class, then Going Bananas and Brentwood Karting, 12th and 13th. Monkey are going to be in 14th spot, and penultimate in their class. Then you've got the Clubman victors, Slippery Bananas, Red Spider Racing in 2nd place there. JZ Racing Pro in the 158 in 17th place overall. BAAD Racing in the 39 in 18th. JZ Racing Clubman in 19th, and then the MPS Performance 95 in 20th, with KTM, Orange Tree 207, Wraith Racing 21 in 23rd, and then Camtech rounding out the field. But as I say, thank you very much for joining us, and well, we'll have our podium presentation very shortly. Thank you very much to those of you who've joined the live stream today. I know we've had our technical hitches, but we've been able to hopefully put on a pretty decent broadcast. Make sure to stick around and subscribe if you are new around here, have not watched any of the Rye House Pro Kart Championships or kart clubs or anything before, and we'll be making sure to catch you next time out when the Rye House Kart Club will take